How's it going, everyone, and welcome to a filler episode
Right.
of
Anime Hearthstone.
Anime
With
Hearthstone.
boobies.
Yep. So, of no excuses on btwproductions.com and youtube.com, with only Fern and Ara still here from the main cast. We brought Abo along, though. We're in place of Vidya as a filler show.
Yeah. There was stuff to talk about this week, but we'll hold off for next week. Vol is not feeling very well, so
Well, that and his city's drowning.
also that there's a lot of moisture going on over there at the moment.
Yeah, so he's currently underwater. We'll fish him out after the show at some point and haul him back to land.
I'm not sure he'll be grateful if we do that. He might just wish we just left him to die. So
The way his country's going, probably. So yeah, you can send us emails at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com. Please make Serathis not the only person that sends us emails. I'm sure he's very lonely.
yes, indeed.
Also, incidentally, if there are emails, they're effectively put off till next week because we're doing a filler show.
Yes. On the
So, we're
stream
going-
today, we are playing Hearthstone with boobies.
Shadowverse.
Yes.
I'll talk a bit about the specifics of the mechanics as we go through it and what I like about it. This is part of the media I wanted to cover this week anyway, so we'll just use the filler show to skip the fluff and show it to you while I explain it.
Yes, indeed. And just
that-
for warning, by the way, I'm really bad at this. Also, the
I've had-
the Dragoncraft deck that I got as a temporary deck, I don't think is particularly good because it doesn't seem to play the way Dragoncraft should.
It works fine. You just gotta practice with it.
Yeah, there's a good amount of that.
Like knowing when to buff your deck and when to overgrow and stuff. But yeah, we'll get into the specific mechanics of it a bit later. Also, go to YouTube and click on the show description to come to our Discord, and you can come talk to us and join our politics chat and be offended by everything I post.
It's not a very savory place. Actually, it's incredibly salty in there.
I'm not sure salt's the right word. It's just incredibly meme-tastic.
Yeah, what happens if you just get pure sodium and like compress it?
Into a meme,
Yes.
you probably get me ragging on the Beanie Man.
There you go.
But, yeah. So if you want to hate me and everybody else forever, you can go there. Or you can go to the more normal boards and talk to us about other stuff.
I saw that picture of the Beanie Man without the beanie. It looks weird.
Oh, yeah. That picture's been around forever.
Yeah, some people should just stick... When they have their look, they should just stick with it. Because they look really weird if they divert from it. Anywho.
Yeah. So, yeah. We're going to go through our weeks in the media that we went over this week. And then we're going to... I think we're going to switch to Jackbox after this.
Yes, about the halfway point.
Yep. So,
So,
we'll do weeks in media, and then we'll shift gears.
but first, before we get we're going to do things a little bit out of order today. Explain what the hell we're doing.
So this is Shadowverse. So I'll go first with my media this week, because this is what we're doing.
Yes.
Shadowverse is all Abo's fault.
Yeah, I'm welcome. You're sorry.
He
What?
drew us away from the Yu-Gi-Mons.
I can't. I can't play Yu-Gi-Oh for that long. My eyes hurt reading all that text.
There is...
All the teeny weeny ice strain text, yes.
So last week, I was looking for something to play now that I got time. I can play with people again. So I was sitting in Discord with Abo. And we were trying to find something. He goes, "Oh, what's Duel Links?" I'm like, "Oh, I used to play that. I played it a lot."
Mhm.
So we started playing that again. And we got more and more into it, but it's just a bit too far along. It has all the cards that have walls of text for effects. And
Yeah.
unless you've really been keeping up with the game, it can be a little draining to read all that text.
Not to mention there was just a sheer amount of stuff they hit you with right at the start.
Yeah, and it's hard to tell what archetypes are what, etc., etc. But it's a fun format for what it is.
Yeah, I really actually like it. I'm crap at card games, but I enjoy Duel Links.
Yeah, Duel Links is a much simpler form of Yu-Gi-Oh! It just has the card text problem that Yu-Gi-Oh! Has.
Yeah,
My only
which reminds me, I
problem-
need to log in there, finish the bingo card so I can unlock / kidnap Mokuba.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. You
duels
gotta
are
get...
so short.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've
It's
already
the
done
only
first card.
thing... Yeah. Well, you gotta get to Silver Ring. Oh, we have a Volacel.
Oh, we do?
So yes. Filler play. So we were so Val just joined the chat. I don't know if he can hear us yet or not.
I can hear you.
Hooray.
Okay. Well, Fern said you weren't here, so we started doing a filler show.
Oh no, I'm here. I just bathroom smells like a volcanic vent now.
Oh, boy.
Charming.
So we can drop this as a pretense and do a normal show, or we can keep going with the filler show.
Keep going with this. We're on it already. And
Let's
explain...
promise Jackbox, dang it.
Probably not. we have
So,
a 4-person show instead this week.
So, what was I talking about? Right. So, Duel Links. We were going through that, and Abo noticed the Idolmaster event was going on in another game, and so he's like, "We should play this one." And so I had heard of Shadowverse. I had heard of something in the news about it, but totally forgot what it was.
It's quite popular with streamers.
Yeah.
It was everywhere in YouTube sponsorships not too long ago.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
So,
actually JonTron sponsored it at one point.
Possibly. But I had never played it before. I didn't even really know what the game was like. And was pleasantly surprised with what I found when I booted it up.
I guess I just sort of assumed it was a Hearthstone clone. Because it looks like a Hearthstone clone.
It is a Hearthstone clone.
Like everything else that came out around the same time.
Yeah.
It's Hearthstone with all the wonky bits and stuff that didn't quite work in Hearthstone hacked off.
What I have found from my little bits of poking at it, it's Hearthstone if it was designed by people who knew how card games work and how to take advantage of the digital medium.
Yeah.
Motorcycles.
Yeah.
Don't need motorcycles for this one.
Yes, you do.
So, for the sake of explaining it, I guess, we can actually load the game.
Yes, indeed.
So, this will make it much simpler. We have the Idolmaster stage.
You are,
Happy.
incredibly happy. Whereas I'm
Yes,
playing a
you're right.
character who has an incredibly depressing story.
Yeah. Yeah, he do.
You do, because he murdered all his family and
Oh,
possibly
I can see
ate them.
both people's hands.
Can you?
Yeah, he can spectate our match.
Oh, okay.
I can't see him spectating our match, but he can do it. So you get to mulligan at the start, and it decides randomly who goes first and second, unless you predetermine that ahead of time, which you can do in private matches.
Yeah.
So, but I just set it to random because it's more fun. So first turn player draws one card to their hand, and starts obviously a little bit ahead on the mana curve. Now, you'll see these little spheres next to our characters' portraits, and a number that will count down every turn. And when the number hits 0, we can do some fun stuff that I'll talk about when we get to that. So Fern, you just saw on his screen, drew 2 cards because he's second turn player. This is part of their compensation. You can also notice he starts with a smaller number than me, and his is going to reach 0 before mine.
Yes.
So this is the other concession they give to second turn player, because starting ahead on a mana curve in a mana curve based game is kind of a big deal. It also means
Piece the coin.
the coin.
The coin. Yeah, there is no the coin.
So yeah, we have these.
Jeez. I cannot never actually get the hang of the accelerate mechanic either.
So cards in this game are deceptive in their mana curve, because Fern's talking about something called an accelerate effect and an enhance effect. A card has a base mana cost, and then some of them have an accelerate cost where you can play it as a spell instead of a monster and get a weaker effect, and it's usually much cheaper. So if you draw it early, it's not as bricky, and if you draw it late, it has a really good effect. And then you have the enhance effect, which is the opposite. If you generally low cost cards, that if you have the mana for it, you must pay the enhance effect if you play it, but its effect is much better. For example, this thing's just a 1/1 that I'm playing right now. But because I paid 3 mana for it instead, because it has that ability to do that, it lets me draw a card.
Well, I can see what cards you guys are looking at in your hands. That's weird.
I suppose it would be. It'd be popping up and down all over the place for you, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Yeah,
So-
that's strange.
One distinction I like, since I put a card out with it on the field, I couldn't use it, but you see, my Micro Assault Bot has an effect called Rush. They have broken up the charge mechanic, or the what's the magic equivalent of can attack the turn it's played?
Haste,
I think, yeah.
Yeah. So they have broken that up into 2 separate effects, which makes a lot of sense and allows for a lot of card diversity going on here. So, Rush means I can attack only your monsters with it. So if it has Rush, I can attack your monsters. If it has Storm, I can go face with it. Or hit your monsters. So, right now,
George,
I'm just killing dude. Yeah, George died.
George died.
Should have run my engineer into him. So you'll notice Fern now has these lit up orbs next to him, and he has 3 ticks of them. In addition to getting to use them earlier, he's allowed 1 extra charge of them. And playing a monster, if he presses the evolve button on it, which he's not doing, he's just kind of drawing cards.
Well, no, I just use spells.
Yeah.
This deck is very ramping up, as you can tell.
Yeah. As he can... You need to get something on the board. That's it's not good.
You're just going to chew on my face for another turn or 2. It's fine, it's fine.
Well,
For some reason, Fern's character gives me the impression that he's wondering if he left the stove on.
It does a little bit, doesn't it?
That's not what burned his house down.
Yeah, he didn't need the stove's help to burn his house down.
Yeah.
So the reason Fern probably wanted to play a monster is cause he could have done this to it.
Yes, I can do that.
So at the cost of 1 of those charges after they become active on your 5th turn, or 4th turn, I think, for 2nd turn player, you can involve any monster on the board, as long as it does not have an effect that restricts you from doing so, which are very rare. And for most monsters, that gives them +2/+2 and rush, so they can attack other monsters, but they can't go face. This guy was already on the field for a turn, so he can still go face.
Yep.
So I'm not going to kill Fern next turn, if he doesn't have an answer, just so we can show more of the game off. But, and that's basically it. You follow up.
That sounds like one of the most politely condescending phrases that I've ever heard.
I mean, it is what it is. So if Fern was to, say, evolve his 3/4 right now, he could kill my 6/5.
Which I actually intend on doing, because it's just got to get the hang of the controls on this game.
So it already had Storm on it, so it doesn't gain the rush effect. But if it didn't have Storm, it would be able to attack, even though we just played it this turn.
Yeah. So I can just do that.
Yeah. So they'll kill each other. And she,
as you know, this card can't do anything.
Yeah, she's just played this turn. She's a really good card, though.
Yeah. Also, boobies.
Yeah, she looks at tomorrow's water pressure. So we'll just play. Let me divine tomorrow's water pressure. That's what she says.
Yeah, some of the cards say some really strange things.
So I'm just gonna kill off that guy, and I'll let you keep your mermaid.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to show off more of the game. But that's pretty much it for the game. The highlight points here, I think, are the evolution mechanic. This adds a whole lot of complexity to the game without making it ridiculous, because everybody can do it. It's just a base system mechanic. And there are cards that play around it, like they'll refund your evolution points, or they'll do new stuff when they evolve. They'll summon dudelets.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Can't play you.
I can be happy at you. But yeah, and that's the game I've been playing. I like it a lot. I think I think the evolution mechanic helps. I think the class mechanics help a lot too. I'll talk about those in a sec. And what else? I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can come up with in the game.
Yeah.
For surface level stuff before I dive into classes.
Usually where you want to go with this is that for each category you want to compare and contrast with its direct competitors.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how to do that. Okay, so Hearthstone is the obvious direct competitor to this game. So first off, third-party crossovers are a thing in this game.
Yes, as you
Grant-
can tell, I believe we're both using third-party icons.
No, you're
for
using-
avatars.
Icons, but you're playing as Rowan. I'm playing as Idolmaster.
Yeah.
So just wipe the board up.
I know that's been one of the major complaints that's been leveled at FGO historically is the stock Type Moon refusal to do any crossovers on their own properties.
Yeah, no collabs at all. There was a Type Moon crossover in this game.
Well, I said on their own properties.
Yeah,
They don't mind crossing over into other properties. We've seen that quite a number of times, including in Monster Hunter. But they don't ever include other properties within their own IP.
Mm-hmm. And that's
that's really sort of damaged its popularity because the particular culture that plays it loves crossovers.
Yeah.
I mean, the series is one big crossover in history.
Basically, yeah.
I suppose they feel that opens up a lot of opportunities to tread on the wrong toes, though. Since everybody already has their own version of this character. Or several.
It may or may not be women this time.
One happy infusion. You're too
Coming
happy.
right up.
Stop it.
One happy infusion coming right up.
Tiamat's not dead.
I know she's not. I could have killed you last turn, by the way. All I had to do was evolve a Radiant Artifact and go face.
Yeah, you could have just gone straight face and kill me then.
I could have killed you about 8 times, actually.
I know.
Oh, you should have saved an evolution point for that thing. That's how you win.
On that thing, yeah.
Yeah, when you evolve it, you get a Phoenix Roost. And one thing I like about this game that Hearthstone's interface does not have at all, if you click on a card or hover over it in my case, you can click on the keywords and see what they do, or click on the cards they summon and see what they do.
Mm-hmm.
What's a boombot? I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
There's no, what is summon X boombots or whatever.
Mr. Grabby. Mr. Grabby has a lot of ads.
That's a lot of
interesting.
boombots.
There's a lot of boombots.
Well, just 2 of them have rush and 2 of them let me draw a card, but that's not going to help me here because my hand's full.
Yeah.
So you can only hold 9 cards in your hand. Draw power is not really a thing in this game. Usually decks have a way to draw if you play the cards right. So you wind up in situations that I'm in with a zillion cards. As you can see, Fern just played like 5 cards that turn and still has 5 cards in his hand.
Ah.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I just stopped one short of face.
Yep.
Okay, you got it next turn. I believe you. I believe that you exist.
As long as he
and I
doesn't
believe
pull
in
some
you.
shenanigans out, which he might have actually just done. Oh, it just
So-
turns up. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, but if it attacks, then
It goes
it
away.
blows up everything, including both leaders.
I'm curious about something.
The ultimate Chad move would be to attack with 21 and then end your turn.
That would be. I want to see what happens if we draw, though.
Yeah. Ouch, my face.
How much does he do? 7 or 4?
4.
Huh. I don't know.
You could run the little dude into something.
Yeah. We gotta solve this puzzle. And then I can Paradigm into Airstrike. And then I can Airstrike into that thing. And then I can Paradigm into Airstrike.
Oh no.
And then go face. And then draw the
End your
duel.
turn to see what happens.
Draw. So that happened.
So yeah, that's the
Everybody
game.
loses.
I know I've got a whole bunch of extra, actually really good cards in my collection because when you first start the game, they just give you like a bajillion decks to open up.
Oh yeah, they give you what amounts to probably
50
100.
packs.
Yeah, so that's like $100 of cards.
Plus
Yeah.
temporary card.
Right. So this is something that every game that uses a rotation feature should use if they're a digital card game.
Try this deck.
Here,
So
I'll play it.
basically, by
I'll
doing
play
daily
rotation.
missions, you get temporary gems.
Yeah.
You spend the temporary gems on temporary legendaries.
Yeah.
Right.
But also, you
And-
can also go back to a lot of the previous events and get some freebies like that. Like I've got Tay from the Zombie Idol anime, who is Bear
Yeah.
Zombie.
So I'll play the deck you just played, Fern, to show you how it's supposed to work if I can get a good hand.
And that's the big thing for that deck is if you get a good hand.
You just gotta know how to mulligan right and hope you don't get totally bricked.
Yeah.
But yeah, so aside from the temporary cards, the bigger thing is the temporary deck. Every single rotation, you're given a pick of 4 decks, I think, that are currently in the rotation, and you can choose to pick one of them, and you get to keep the cards until a new set comes out, and then you're given a new temporary deck pass to get picked from a new list of 4.
So you always have a decent deck at least.
Yeah, you always have a playable deck for the current rotation.
And they have several legendaries and like 5 or 6 in each one. So
Yeah, there's tons of legendary cards and a bunch of really good super rare cards. The current Holy Sanctuary Havencraft one is absurd.
also, if you want to play the not the rotation format, but the unlimited format, the game Gate gives you like 1 copy of almost every legendary in the game.
Yeah,
Temporary.
yeah,
Temporary. It's just temporary, so you can't shard it like in our stuff.
yeah. It does have the same dust mechanic that Hearthstone does, where you can hang on. It does have the same dust mechanic where you can shard cards to get dust to craft cards.
Liquids, as they
Yeah,
are
you
now
get-
called, yes.
So you can liquefy your cards. And yeah, that's a good point with it. What else is there? Oh.
That wasn't a good play.
So, what else can I talk about with it? So, compared to Hearthstone, Hearthstone has a problem with the developers don't know how to make card games. they have
that's putting it nicely.
they just try to make toys instead of trying to make a competent card game. And it seems like every set that's released now just has more and more gimmicks they want to try, rather than having an idea of how to use these core mechanics and make them into a real card game. Like in this game,
it didn't have its genesis as a major development team. It was a sort of a gimmick incubator. That's what created Hearthstone to begin with, and so it's got that particular pedigree to it.
yeah.
Hmm.
So, what was I doing? Right.
Incidentally,
yeah,
by the way, just a point of rules of what I did there is when you evolve a card, yes, it can attack, but it cannot attack face.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about before with being able to set that up. So I drew no defense up cards, which is a problem for this deck. I know there's a ton in here, I just didn't draw them.
Yeah, you've got to draw right on that deck.
But this game also leans into the fact it's a digital card game a bit better. Instead of having things like, play a random number of spells that have ever existed in the game is a fun thing. With like Yogg Saron, based on the number of spells played that game, he would pull a random amount of spells from any class and just vomit them out. This game is a bit more tame with its effects. Hang on one second, I gotta math. Math is hard. Can I math good?
Can you math
No.
good? No.
Okay. I can math okay, but
you math
yeah.
all right.
yeah, I could have got a lot worse there. Okay, yeah, I mathed right. I'm good. We fine. So he could attack the monster. It had a ward, but he could attack the monster there.
Hmm.
But all the effects are more in line with what you would expect from a digital card game, like give +1, +0, or +0, +1 to all followers in the deck. That makes much more sense if you're constructing a digital card game that can take advantage of something like that without having to manage counters on stuff. Because that's something you can't really do in a physical card game. You could, but it would get really unwieldy really fast. And this game leans heavily into effects that do that kind of thing. And then it has cards that if their defense, like this guy, if it has at least 8 defense, I get to draw 2 cards when he's played, but I haven't ramped up the defense of the cards on my deck with cards yet, so he's not there yet. But if I play him, he will instead ramp the deck. So now everything in my deck has +2 defense, or +2 health. And then I can play her, and they'll get 1 more. So now they all have +3. And now they're all really fat. So in general, I just like the way it works. I think the evolution mechanic is the biggest selling point, though. It just allows a lot more complicated play once you get used to it, without making the game seem overwhelming. You just play a fighter.
I just played a fighter. Because he's bad. He's a really bad card.
Don't disrespect the fighter.
What should I do? What should I do? Actually, you know what? Screw it. Now he's edgy. Protagonist!
So yeah, that's really all I got to say mechanically about it. It'd be easier if you had specific questions and things you wanted to ask if it compares to with Hearthstone or even other TCGs. If you can fish some
Hearthstone wants $25 for story mode. How much does it cost in this game?
Yeah,
oh, it's free.
Yeah, it's free. That's a fat dude. That was my face.
That was your face. That was Gorgonzola.
That was all my face.
Yeah, Gorgonzola's fat.
Gorgonzola is indeed
chunky boy.
He is a chunky boy. So, if you and Abo fight, that way you can actually see what 2 people who know what they're doing are doing fight looks like.
Yeah, and that'll give you a better idea of how it's supposed to work. Let me bust out the artifact deck.
Yep.
So I'm gonna kick Fern, and he can spectate. He can spectate. You find the spectate button, Fern?
Yeah, that's right.
Go back to the.
If you got
guild.
the code.
No, go back to the guild.
Oh, right, you can do it through the guild. That's right.
Yeah.
So that's another thing it has. Guilds.
Mm.
We can just set up private matches and anybody in the guild can join.
Yeah.
And anybody can spectate. There's none of this wonky inviting friend needing to stream your whatever crap if everybody in the guild's playing.
I'm just gonna wait for it to refresh.
And it actually has, speaking of the story, it has a story mode. It's fully voice acted in both English and Japanese, for better and worse. And
so you can pick all 4 of the temporary decks in private matches.
yeah, I just ran the ramp deck into Fern.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So
are you spectating?
Not letting me spectate. That's kind of weird. Why is the button not?
The match. I'll remake the match.
Scroll down.
I can just remake it. But yeah, guilds. It also has daily missions that are much. You can switch to solo play, unlike Hearthstone. So if you don't want to do multiplayer, you can switch them to solo play. You'll get less rewards that way. But
there it is.
Okay.
Hearthstone only gives me 1 mission a day. What does this game do about that?
You're the one that does the missions more than I do, so you can probably answer that.
Uh-huh. Me? Oh, okay. So Hearthstone gives you 1 mission a day, and you can reroll 1 a day. This game gives you 3 missions on individual 21-hour cooldowns.
Yep.
And you can reroll once every 21 hours. And there's a regular daily mission that resets every day at the same time.
And it gives you way more free stuff just for logging in. To get the spectator turn?
Yeah, I'm watching.
Login bonuses
So,
are a thing, because of course they are.
Hearthstone, I think, gives you a card deck, a card pack, and that's it. Maybe a bit of gold.
Yeah, well, they don't give you very much.
Diabetes!
What?
Just everything about this.
Mhm.
It's so sweet and sugary.
Oh, because I have my stage turned on, and you have use whatever your opponent uses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he hasn't seen the Idolmaster stage yet.
Not big screen anyway. Whereas Abo's using one of the default characters who is Lady Jiggle Physics.
Yes.
So it's always appropriate to emote on your first turn if you can't do anything. What else?
That's a thing.
Oh, the quality of the story mode. I was actually surprised. Like, I don't want to just skip the story to get the rewards. It's actually fairly decent for what it is.
I've heard it gets good.
I mean, even what we got, the individual character stories are still interesting enough to want to read through them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, the Hearthstone stories are fun and they're dumb, but you've
But
also
they're
got to pay
just
for it.
silly. But they're also all silly gags. It's like if
They aren't
every
really stories, just more like characters talking as you fight and stuff.
yeah, it's like if Hearthstone's story is the summer event in FGO every single event.
Yeah. It's all just ridiculous and silly.
It doesn't really have anything going for it there.
Yeah.
I guess
It's good for a quick laugh, and that's about it.
But these stories are actually, they're trying to tell a real story. It's a clumsy anime story, and that it plays the anime tropes up really hard, but it's still interesting. There's still stuff happening. There's still an actual story there you can derive some kind of meaning from. That there's a story they're trying to tell. Most of the stories are incredibly dark, though. So far, anyway.
Yeah, like the Dragoncraft guy, his story basically starts with him standing in a field going, "Woe is me, everybody I know is dead.
And it's all my fault.
And it's all my fault."
It's all. And it gets much darker
Leave
from
the
there.
stove on?
He didn't need to leave the stove on to burn his house down.
No, he just arbitrarily turns into a black dragon occasionally.
Yeah. It happens so early in every character story that bumps into him. I'm not sure that's exactly a spoiler.
It's like, "Hi, I'm angsty, and I am a dragon." They do explain why and how he does, but yeah, it's very anime.
Well,
So,
I
yeah.
mean, technically, Letty is an anime dragon.
Yeah, he does not turn into Letty. Letty is he's a disappointment. He is not very good at dragon.
So, I would not advise playing the Havencraft Girls story first. You're going to spoil a whole bunch of every other character's story on the way, and figure out a big part of the mystery way too early. But I did that, so that's the only part of the story mode I regret so far.
I have a feeling that the blood guy, who is not Alucard,
He's the happiest story out there. He just wants to fight strong
Yeah,
people.
he's just
yeah, that's
running around
basically
like,
his
"What
story. Is I vampire, I won't fight, but he
He'd
also
fight
runs
good.
in everyone. But we have to reiterate that he is not Alucard.
No, that's he's not Dracula. Not Alucard is a card in the game
Named
that
Alucard.
Oh,
named
right, right.
Alucard that looks exactly like Alucard from Symphony of the Night.
Yeah,
He's
that's
not
right.
Alucard.
But he's definitely not Alucard. Yeah, that's right. The leader's definitely not Dracula. Definitely not.
Definitely
Stupid
not.
robot.
Why?
You already rolled
I'm
a
seeing
bunch.
all the fancy effects, and it's sweet and it's happy, and I hate it.
Oh, you must live a very joyful existence.
There's such a thing as too much sugar.
There's never too much happy with Kirari. It's kind of her
You're gonna
thing.
get the diabetes.
I'm definitely getting the diabetes.
Still thank you for it.
Oh dear.
So yeah, I threw some shekels at the game because I actually really, really like it. There's a small issue with it that's easily fixed that I do think is worth mentioning. I'll talk about that in just a sec.
Mm-hmm.
But
Which is also part of the reason for my random flailings while I was trying to control the game. Because I changed
Oh,
that
well-
setting, and after I'd gotten used to the old way of doing things.
that's a different thing.
Okay.
But so there is an enable 60 FPS option on the PC that as soon as you finish installing the game and get through the tutorial, you need to enable.
Just do that.
So no, the issue I was talking about was at some point this game got a Yu-Gi-Oh style anime and a Switch game.
Oh, it did.
And the Switch game needed to meet a certain age rating requirement.
They took the
So
boobies out.
Well, they didn't take the boobies out, but they awkwardly covered them up. So we're stuck in that kind of awkward censorship position, and most of it just looks really bad.
Yeah.
There's no real two ways about that.
I haven't
thing in the
actually
game
watched
is
the
you can
anime
unlock.
yet, but the character portraits are still in there.
Yeah.
And
So-
yeah, they look very much like if you were to draw a bunch of characters that were like the epitome of crappy Yu-Gi-Oh knockoff characters, that's what you get.
Yeah. They all look ugly. And all the redrawn art,
That
unfortunately.
anime already exists in that, whatchamacallit, Duel Masters.
Yes.
Yeah,
Do you
something
remember
like that.
Back in the day?
No, I would choose not to.
Oh, that's right. Duel Masters was a thing. What the heck is that thing? She looks even happier than Kirari right now.
I'm way too happy.
That is very happy. What is that?
But yeah. So
Better than the
This
mermaids who just look drunk.
the mermaids are hilarious. Because they are drunk.
Oh, I see. That explains that.
But the censorship unfortunately weaseled its way into the PC game as well as the Switch game after they fixed the cards.
Well, they're also trying to like push esports and stuff, and
Yeah, and when you're trying to push esports, you kind of have to make
same problem Street Fighter
concessions.
5 ran into.
Yeah,
Yeah. So in general, I hate when companies push esports. I think it's really dumb.
well, it's usually bad for the game, for the levels of fun in the game. Honestly,
In particular, this game they're trying to get it like into school esport teams and stuff. So having
Yeah.
the anime titties bouncing around isn't exactly something school.
Yeah, but the thing is that everybody will know. Everybody will know that ultimately this game was about the titties, and that's how it got its start.
I
Like,
mean, it
Yeah.
wasn't about.
You can't-
look
you
at
can't
this character up the top there. Look at her.
you can't undo the past. It's got that.
Well,
It's got that ancestry.
actually, you can undo the past, or you can undo the present and return it to the past
Return to
relatively easily. The game is easily moddable as far as these PNGs go. You can go download all the uncensored artwork that got censored and just stick it back in the game.
Yeah, you can actually.
Whichever-
go
That's not what I'm
back-
talking about. What I'm talking about is the reality that this game is already known for its boobies.
Yeah, like
Like
if you
that,
go
that's,
and
that's
watch
a priori effect.
Yeah. I believe it was Gigak who did it, who was one of the first to jump on the sponsorship train for it. And you watched his video where he did it, and just the animations of some of the female characters is ridiculous. Like they're bouncing around their frame, and their boobs are just going everywhere.
Was that
It's a bit
this
absurd.
game though? I'm not sure if that was this. It might be.
Yeah, it's Shadowverse because I particularly remember that top character doing it as well.
Well, she's the only one really. That does.
She is the booby lady.
If I was on the bottom of your screen, it would show my animation, and
Yeah,
you'd
it's upside
see,
down for you.
yeah, you'd see massive jiggling.
Enormous
Jelly.
boobage, yes. I have not put the uncensored patch on, so you're seeing the censored version where
Well,
they've
didn't
toned it
censor
down.
They didn't, no, they didn't. They just didn't. They didn't remove the jiggle.
So yeah,
You gonna punch me?
That's whatever this game is called. We've had a thing where we just can never remember what it's actually called.
Well, it's not a very memorable name, to be honest.
No, it is generic as they come. So Shadowverse.
Attack me!
No,
Fight me!
no, I'm not going to swing
Bring
with
it.
him.
Bring it!
If that card swings, the entire board blows up. That's what I went for with the draw last time.
Do it. You won't.
I won't. You're
You're a
right.
coward.
So I'm pretty screwed this match anyway. I think he's got it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I really like the game for what it is. The fact that you can get the janky censorship out is a plus. And Not even really worth noting since you can just remove it.
Yeah, I like having that option there.
So, and what else is there? I think that's pretty much it for this game in particular.
Alright, unless you want to talk about Duel Links a little bit more, but
You've been playing the Duel Links, so that we can do that on yours if you want.
not really. The most of it, I kind of got started to get into it and unlock some things, and the idol died.
Glory to the happy, happy empire.
Happy Empire just exploded. But yeah, just as soon as I was starting to get the swing of things in Duel Links again, these two ran away.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
my week, by and large, has been filled with playing through Subnautica Below Zero.
I haven't seen you online playing it, but I haven't really been looking either.
Yeah, my Steam is weird. Like, if I don't pay attention and actively kick the friends list, it just says I'm offline for everyone.
You must have been able to log on into offline mode at some point somewhere.
Or something, yeah.
There's like a sign into friends automatically checkbox somewhere.
Yeah, there is. So that's probably unchecked somewhere. So, it's a good game. It originally started life, I believe, as a expansion to the first game, but it's become a sequel. So you've got a new protagonist who is Robin, who actually has a name and a face, who is come to the planet to try and find her sister, but ultimately just gets eaten by fish over and over again. Because Subnautica.
I see. So is this an expansion or a new Subnautica game?
It is a bit of both. It uses a lot of the unused stuff that didn't make the cut for the first game. It is just a complete standalone game, though. So you do not need to own the first one. It helps to play the first one because that will lay all the groundwork for who the architects are and what a bit of what their deal is and what this virus they keep prattling on about is, because that's part of the first game. So
not a virus.
It's a virus. It's an alien virus quarantine in their case involved being a giant surface to orbit laser cannon.
Dude, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, that's the first game. That's one of the challenges of the first game is cure virus, shut down the surface to orbit cannon, and build yourself a rocket ship to go home. This time, Robin is there, and she's actually willingly on this planet, although she also crash lands, because of course she does. They've added a lot more just direct story. So Robin actually speaks. You have another woman who's running around on the planet who is not your sister because she is evidently dead pretty early on. The game basically just says, yeah, she's already dead. You also get an alien who moves into your head for a while. So there's that as well.
I see.
Yeah, the first game was very subtle with its storytelling. It was all data logs and context clues to figure out what was going on. So it's nice, but what it does do is it kind of removes a lot of the loneliness that the first game had. The first game, you are the only human around. There's evidence that other humans made it down in the crash, but they died really quick. They're definitely dead by the time you get them. They're actually well and truly gone, presumably eaten by fish, because there's no corpses. So once you've discovered that, you have this, spoilers by the way, for people who haven't played it yet, you have a rescue ship that comes in, they get shot out of the sky, and they're dead. So you're all on your little lonesome. But yeah, Robin's constantly having...
expectancies in these parts don't seem to be very good.
Yeah. So, beyond the story, they've added a lot of quality of life improvements over the first game. Mechanically, it's the same. It's swim around, gather resources, build things to get further, rinse, repeat. But there's new base bits which give you a lot more room instead of building just a network of tiny little rooms all over the place. You get a moddable vehicle rather than this giant stonking submarine, which was okay, but you couldn't get it anywhere because it gets stuck. So yeah. Also, the biggest advantage is a resource scanner. Instead of spending like an hour digging around hoping to find a piece of copper in this giant ocean, you can just scan for it now, which is nice. So yeah, it is now out of early access, which is why I played it. So it is definitely worth a look. But I do recommend play the first game first. Just if not just for the story, but also so you can appreciate how they've improved things a bit. They did take out the cuttlefish though, so you don't get fishy high fives anymore.
I see.
That was a big deal. There was a fish that just hang around you and he'd give you a high five whenever you wanted. He was your best friend in an otherwise cold and uncaring ocean.
I see.
This sounds like a Wilson situation, though.
There is a certain amount of that, yes. So at least the cuttlefish is alive and friendly. Wilson's kind of a jerk.
Well, I don't know if Wilson was a jerk as much as Tom Cruise was a jerk.
Tom Cruise? As much as I'd like to see Tom Cruise left alone on an island all on his lonesome to go mad, it was Tom Hanks. No, it wasn't. It was, who was it now?
Was it Tom Hanks?
No, was it? I'll go look it up.
I thought it was Tom Hanks. For some reason, I thought it was Tom Hanks.
I think it was Tom Hanks.
It might have been. It might have been Tom Hanks. That sounds right.
Yeah.
That might have been why I thought it was Tom Cruise.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't Tom Cruise. Even though he's the one who deserves to go to an island on his own. He was kind of crazy though, and he'll be kept company by his own enormous ego. So there's that. Anyway, so beyond that, it's a really good game. Go play it. The other game I've been playing is just sitting through and replaying Professor Layton vs. Phoenix Wright. And it's still a good game. I've forgotten just how much effort they put into a lot of little things in that game. And I don't know, sometimes it's just good to play a game that just scratches an itch.
You had an itch to do someone's math homework for them?
With a bit of a slightly silly but incredibly grim and dark story, yes. Sometimes you just want to play a particular game. I'm actually starting to reach the point in the game. It's probably about the halfway, 2/3 point, where everything just starts to go really, really bad.
Oh, where they start dumping people in lava?
Yeah, Maya has not had her fire bath yet. Layton is gold, though. That's, yeah, again, spoilers. But it.
Oh, they did turn him into gold, didn't they?
Yeah, he gets turned into gold. He's
Like
yeah.
in Curse of Monkey Island.
Yes. And yeah, at the end of that case, Maya goes for a fire bath.
That's a game that needs a remaster.
Yeah.
Curse of Monkey Island.
I'm afraid that they would find some way to ruin it.
They've already done that. They've done
The art has a few burrs on the edges, but it really doesn't need to be changed.
disco remix
Yeah,
of
just
the
hype.
pirate song. Do it.
No, it's not. Let's not do that. Nothing
There's a
about
big
that
chunky
sounds
boy.
good.
It sounds terrible and it's horrible. Yes. But that would-
Captain fully charged.
that's about the only thing I think they could really improve on is that game is just more pirate song.
How many verses can it go on for?
Yeah, just see how long you can keep it going before you inevitably have to ruin it. I'm going to leave my week at that. There's still card games going on.
Yeah, just put something on the screen while you guys talk about your weeks.
Yep. So you're playing as the Shadowcraft girl now?
Yes.
Yes. Who is the creepy, gloomy child type dealy?
Who's haunted by her dead parents.
Because of course she is.
Does anybody have a not sucky life in this game?
Now,
The vampire.
Fire's having a good time.
yeah,
He's
enjoying
dead.
himself.
He's not dead.
Not anymore.
He was never dead. He was just sealed away.
Isn't he just undead?
No.
Yeah, these vampires are undead by definition.
Yes.
Well, okay, whatever. I don't know if he's a. Well, I guess they do call him a vampire. But maybe
Yeah, he calls
that's not
himself
how
a
that
vampire.
works here.
He wouldn't need to convince people that he wasn't Alucard or whatever if he wasn't a vampire.
Yes. I am Vlad. I am not a vampire.
He has in the English. He has this really bad Transylvanian accent
does.
that's clearly some American's idea of what a Transylvanian accent sounds like.
Well, a cinematic Transylvanian accent anyway. I have no idea what an actual Transylvanian accent might sound
Yeah,
like.
It doesn't because the place doesn't actually exist, does it?
it does. I'm pretty sure.
It just means across the forest, so it could be
Yeah.
anywhere in Hungary where there's a forest, I
It's
guess.
supposed to be Romania or something like that. Kind of in that part of the world somewhere.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's the only character who seems to be having a good time in this universe.
He's just having a gay old time.
He just doesn't care. He's out to have a fight and he's finding it. He's fine. He's happy.
The whole plot is something wants to grant the desires of everybody there by forcing them into a dream state where they get everything they want, and his is just fight strong dudes.
So he's happy.
Other
Yeah.
people, it's like, oh, your family's dead, my princess dead, my best friend's dead.
Yeah, like the Dragoncraft guy, he goes in there and it seems like his greatest desire is just to relive his greatest failures over and over again.
Well,
That's
some people seem to be happy only when they're miserable.
I guess.
I'm not sure I'd call what he's going through happy, since he fights to get out of it.
Yeah, he's certainly not happy.
He gets the resolve in the end, but he has to go through not fun stuff. I did his story yesterday, thinking that it was just, this guy looks very generic. He won't have a good story. I just want to get his out of the way. And I was like, oh wow, he's in the running for darkest story out there.
Yep. You'd think edgy chick here would have the darkest.
I'm not even sure I'd call her edgy. She's just sad.
Not as edgy as Edgy Elf.
She's not edgy.
He doesn't look edgy at all.
Gloomy then.
Look at their stuffed animal.
That's always just giving creepy child vibes, is all that's doing.
You can see your dead parents when you taunt.
That's a thing.
That's depressing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, the present in the story, too.
Huh.
What's ancient again? Is that the Rush one? Yeah. Let's do that one.
There's a ton of leaders you can get from buying them with real money for like the crossover ones, or there's a bunch you can get by pulling specific cards.
Like, I'll pop some of them up after you finish this game.
Yeah, we the Kirari I have right now is real money for the intro pack I bought of gems. So
For the Idaroos.
yeah. Oh, I could have played. I'm dumb. I thought I had dropped them already. but yeah. Oh, you should evolve the mummy into the waifu.
Wait, what?
What?
The mummy becomes the waifu.
Oh lord, it does.
She talks like a teenage girl too, which is hilarious.
There's so many things wrong with this. Anyway, Vol, what have you been up to this week?
Not a great deal, really. As far as games go, we're pretty much in a lull for FGO because with Hunting Quest season the week past and into the start of this week, I think it was. And frankly, the only thing that I was really interested in was Bones, but Bones was on the day that I had the least time because I was very busy at work. So unfortunately, I didn't make much progress there. But it's basically a much needed rest week after a whole series of back-to-back events that was starting to really burn people out. So this week is another sort of a beat week in the sense that it's interludes, new interludes. I haven't had time to play most of them. I've played Mysterious Heroine X Altars and Empress Woos. And they were both pretty good. Empress Woos was a lot more heartwarming than you expect from a psychopathic torturer.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because did they go? Which way did they go with her story?
It's pretty much fluffy. Like basically, the theme of her story is basically her Well, it's part of servant law that they are most commonly summoned at their peak.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of a bit strange for Empress Wu to be summoned while she's still very young. But that was because the throne basically judged her to be at her peak when she was young. In the sense
before
that-
she murdered her way up the hierarchy?
No, she has the full set of memories of her life of having murdered her way up the hierarchy, and she has that personality. But she was judged to be at her peak because when she was just in a palace, as one of the harem, she was very single-mindedly devoted to self-improvement and worked her way up from being some random hick who got dragged in from the countryside to being the imperial consort. But basically, her interlude story is based around her insecurities as being one of many servants, because she personally feels like she's back in the inner palace, back at square one, competing for the attentions of the master, so that she'll be the one who gets used.
I wouldn't want to
So-
compete for her attentions. That's how you get murdered.
She's actually portrayed as an incredibly gracious person and only sees the whole torture and poison thing as necessary tools when ruling an empire.
Mm.
So she doesn't actually interact that way with other characters, and she stridently claims that she's not afraid or ashamed of having used them, but clearly doesn't really want people she cares about to see her using them.
I
But
see.
yeah, so it's a lot more of a heartwarming sort of story than one expected, with the sort of concomitant silliness that is always present in side stories for FGO. So basically, for instance, this is her second interlude. Her first one is the theme is Empress Wu's historical paranoid superstition, especially regarding cats, and her being convinced that Fu is a cat. And
I mean, there's probably cat in there somewhere.
there's a whole bunch of shenanigans that actually involve her. I think it was something like her writing a challenge to herself and then having her memory erased so that she wouldn't know she was the one who challenged herself, and it was a tactic for her to try and get over her fears, which was
What?
semi-successful. Well, because she knows that she's incredibly proud and that she wouldn't back down from a challenge, but she wants to get over her fear of ghosts. So she writes herself a challenge and then gets another servant to erase her memory, and so she goes on shenanigans all over Chaldea trying to work out who sent the challenge, and in the process of doing so goes through all the challenges that she herself had planned out for her. It's an incredibly convoluted scheme, one that makes perfect sense to her and nobody else. But
I see.
yeah, and the second one, she's basically wants to improve. She figures that previously that she got over her weaknesses, debatable considering she's still afraid of Fu, but this time she wants to get over her strengths. So the first one is outward beauty, and so she ends up basically playing a rhythm game designed by Cleopatra, which is supposed to make you beautiful.
Oh dear.
Which is about as absurd as it sounds. And the second one is she's trying to get calligraphy and music lessons to improve her skills in those areas. So she sets up in Shikibu's library and gets lessons from her, except that she has also recruited Tristan to give her harp lessons, which is not particularly amusing to Shikibu, since she's very, very meek, except when she's fending her library, and doesn't really like the idea of musicians in her library. And as soon as Nobu finds out that there are now musicians in the library, she of course has to show up.
And yeah, the moment you mention Nobu showing up, everything just goes off the rails.
Yeah, things just sort of spiral out of control from there. But yeah, so it was a more heartwarming story than you normally expect from Wu in a lot of cases, and as a result of this interlude, she actually rises to prominence as one of the sort of premier single target quick damage dealers in the assassin class. She's not like Kama or Jack or any of the ones that really sit in the S tier, but she's definitely very high up there. Her damage ceiling is arguably higher than those two, simply because you're more likely to get more copies of her, and her multipliers are pretty freaking spectacular. But she's always been better as a quick semi-support historically, so I haven't actually tried her out to see if it actually plays out well in the end. But she's one of those servants that is saddled with Imperial privilege, meaning that she's got a really high damage ceiling, but is dependent on RNG. Because Imperial privilege never goes off if you really want it to, unless you're using Aussie.
That's the law.
So yeah. Mysterious Hero and X. I'll go on.
Just a random tangent is the last time other game I really encountered Wu in was I think it was Civ 5?
It was 4.
4, yeah. Where she just send you incredibly snotty notes on cooldown.
I'm fairly sure it was 4.
It's 4 or 5, one of the two.
Because 4 is the one that, curiously enough, I played more by sheer amount of time in 4 than any of the other civilizations, despite it being the bad one. Well, it's weird. It doesn't feel like a conventional civilization game. They changed a whole bunch of stuff for reasons that don't really make a lot of sense, including putting it on a weird grid.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
But yeah, she's a very popular figure in Chinese drama at the moment, like period drama, like modern period drama, in the sense that because she's sort of being reimagined as a pseudo-feminist figure, but I wouldn't classify her as such at all.
I would not be trying to make a role model out of a murderous psychopath. No.
That's what the media are doing at the moment. So I mean, there you have it. But yeah. So Mysterious Hero. What? Who? What? Where?
You're playing Edgy Elf. That's actually a card in this game, is Edgy Elf.
Isn't that character from Grand Blue there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just looked up at the screen.
Oh, EO? Yeah, EO. I have her as a filler in the deck.
Yeah, that's a previous crossover.
Anyway, Mysterious Hero and X Alta has her interlude as well, which is basically a reminiscence arc of sorts. But Mysterious Hero and XX has arranged a gathering of servant versus servants for purposes which aren't really made clear, and I don't think she even knew to begin with. But it basically ends up them sitting around a kotatsu eating sweets and reminiscing, much to the displeasure of Mysterious Hero and X, who actually wanted to fight to see who was the strongest servant versus servant, and Mecha Ali-chan, who has been included for reasons that are a complete mystery to her.
And
because while she is ridiculous in every conceivable way, she's not actually part of the Servantverse, so she doesn't know why she's there. But she's also the only one with, a sense of decorum and organization. So she's the one who puts together the meeting into a coherent fashion, so they actually have an objective. At any rate, so they go through these reminiscences of the past. And it basically is, how do they describe? They describe it as season 1.
Oh no!
Because servant versus servants don't have any regard for the fourth wall at all. Although I don't know if it's really appropriate to call it the fourth wall, since while it is true servant versus servants have a habit of breaking the fourth wall, much like Gurda servants do, they also sort of break an internal fourth wall in universe, in that they treat their lives as though it were a TV show with seasons, and nobody else can understand what they're talking about.
That's incredibly strange.
At any rate, so they're describing these past missions, which coincidentally involve going to a desert planet and then going to a sort of a swampy tropical planet, and then later trying to shut down a factory that's producing vast numbers of droids, and so on and so forth. So not even pretending that they aren't doing a Star Wars parody. All the while by being pursued by pursuing in turns a bounty hunter creatively named Edgy Fett, which is
of course he is.
It's basically Edgemere. they actually call him Edgemere.
I mean, he is edgy.
Universe.
Better than Detroit Emiya, I guess.
Yeah.
They also called him something else at one point. I can't remember what it was. It's something like Red Chief's Fast and Furious cousin or something like that. So yeah, it's incredibly silly and incredibly ridiculous. But yeah, I've also got I've yet got Okies to do, which I've heard is also very good. Yeah, so interludes are good, especially because most of these are actually giving power-ups, notable power-ups. In some cases, ones that are pretty critical. Like Oki's never going to be a great support unless they really overhaul her kit and give her some buff that's out of this world. I still use her a lot because she's good for certain circumstances, especially if you know you're going to draw a fight out and use a lot of quick servants. But especially if you know that they would one-shot a caster. Having an assassin support can be really helpful at times. But yeah, her buff is not bad. It's mainly crit focused, and so if you've got sort of a quick team that's rigged for turn over turn combat rather than for finishing up quickly, she's quite effective. But the problem is that quick teams usually only pay off if they're sort of a wham bam thank you ma'am type of deal. You want the fight to close out as quickly as possible, because the moment the crit stars dry up, you lose all momentum and everything falls apart. So you kind of don't really want to use a team of the sort that Oki facilitates. It's sort of weird. Not a great strategy right now. But still a serviceable one. It's not top tier, but it's quite serviceable, and I do use it from time to time, especially if I know that there's going to be a long fight with a preponderance of rider class enemies that is just going to wreck like Wave or Merlin or Skadi or whoever I try and put in instead. But yeah, so Mysterious Heroine X Alta got another power upgrade, and she's still got, I think, another one in her future. She gets some of the most power upgrades of any servant in the game, which I guess I'm quite happy about, since she's one of the ones that I threw all my resources behind powering up. But yeah, she gets this weird 3 turns or 1 time bonus to crit damage on each of her card types, which is sort of strange, but it does work quite effectively with certain anti-boss loop strategies. One of the things that Mysterious Heroine X Alta is good for is using as a utility knife for absolutely smashing usually bosses that have 3 or fewer break bars, but each break bar contains 400k or less health, or something in that neighborhood anyway. Less than that is easier to do, but you can work with a bit of variation, because she's extremely good at looping on herself within limited bounds, but is heavily dependent on the crits happening where you need them. So having additional crit damage will mean that you'll be able to seal the deal a bit easier on those higher health pool break bars, which happen particularly for most bosses toward the end of fights. So it does increase her power a little bit and will allow you to pull more reasonable charge off of your arts card, and will feel less disappointed when you're using your Buster card, because usually Buster cards are a bit of a disappointment, because when you're pairing with Skadi, they don't really pay off that much. But it gives them a bit more utility. You will feel less like you've been gypped. Yeah, so anyway, mostly for other games, I've been playing Monster Hunter, but I haven't really, pushed into it particularly deep. Because
Almudron.
Are you still farming that thing?
Yep, and he's still not giving me a single gem. I just need one.
Trying to help him, didn't go so good.
No, neither of us got anything of note. I did get an Anjanath gem. I don't want an Anjanath gem. It's the desire sensor at its greatest.
Yeah, and in that vein, I've generally just been playing sort of a scatter shot of random monsters without really farming for anything in particular. Mm-hmm. Mainly cleaning up old quests that are lying around, because at the end of the day, I'm too tired to take on something difficult most of the time. So I'll clean up something that I'm fairly confident I can survive at. Unfortunately,
it's the quicker way of getting your hunter rank up too.
Well, my hunter rank's locked at the moment, so because I have to fight Kushala Daora next, but I'm not really that. I'm not really that well geared, so it's not something I've really gone in for yet. But yeah, so I'm fighting a bunch of random stuff and picking up a bunch of random loot. The idea being that if I pick up a bunch of random loot, eventually there'll be stuff that I don't mind disposing of in the name of generating some decorations. Because honestly, I've just been skipping decorations thus far. I
Yeah,
really
likewise.
don't like the fact that they've turned it into a purely random mechanic. As far as I can tell, that's all there is to it. It's random. What you get is random, and you're supposed to just keep rolling the dice until you get what you want. That's why they included a mode which allows you to break down decorations to produce more decorations, because you're just going to have crap ones that you want to get rid of. And I really don't like that, especially considering how RNG farming can already be. Just slapping another RNG system on top of that seems needless. But they did it, and we got to deal with that.
Yeah,
I
I wanted
do
to
hope-
try and reduce just the pure RNG that the first that World had by putting another system which supposedly lets you weigh in on what you want, but it doesn't.
Well, they just moved the RNG elsewhere.
Pretty much, yeah.
So it's not they didn't really reduce it. If anything, it's worse because you've got to invest more in a decoration than you do in most things.
Yeah, it's same
But, yeah,
RNG, just with extra steps.
I'm feeling the Zenny pinch more in this game than I feel I did in World. I don't know if that's just because I dicked around a lot more in World and therefore had more Zenny to play with, but I do feel the pinch a bit more in this one than I did there.
My money.
I think a part of that is the lack of the investigation quests, those generated quests, because a
Yeah,
lot
I
of those
suppose
would give
that's
fairly
true.
good money.
Yeah, well, you could pick and choose ones that you saw would definitely pay off well and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
You were much more able to target your rewards than you are in this one, because most of the high level quests they don't give that great rewards, and generally speaking you're going to have to spend items to get it done, so you're just going to have to pay it off in time anyway, since you'll have to go typically farm more honey or something.
yeah.
But yeah, I hope that they learn the right lessons from this game, because I'm still having a great time playing it. It's full of rough edges that I feel like they just don't need to be there, because World showed them a formula that worked better in certain regards.
Mm-hmm. Like, there's some
I
things in
think that
Rise
this-
I do prefer over World, namely the amount of monsters, particularly, but just a few tweaks and things here and there, like having the way the dango work. It's really nice. You just build a meal that you want rather than having to rely on that fiddly cooking mechanic.
Yeah, I like the dango mechanic better than I like the cooking mechanic in Rise, but I feel viscerally like they're not going to repeat the dango mechanic in that form.
Yeah,
I think it's a one-off unless it becomes a meteoric hit. I don't see them repeating it. But I really hope they don't repeat the World one, because I didn't understand that at all.
that was a mess. That was an absolute
Yeah,
mess.
in the end, I would just, I found something that sort of, I vaguely felt like it worked, and I did it every time, even though I was passing up on potential bonuses in other areas. It was just too complicated to worry about, really.
Yeah.
The investigation quests, I feel like there's a happy medium between just not having them at all and having them constantly coming out your ears.
Yeah. World, I think, you just had too much choice for them, so a lot of them would just drop off the end.
It's not only that, but you would continue to pick up huge amounts of trash ones as well,
Yeah.
whether you wanted to or not, and you would just constantly have to go back to that menu and filter them out manually. You couldn't opt to just not have certain ones appear. I don't know. Some of them were just useless, and you would always get rid of them, and you would essentially just be farming until you got the ones you want. And you had to do some pretty obtuse sorts of things if what you wanted was quests to do tempered elder dragons or whatever. I spent a lot of time basically, just ground pounding around the Twisted Veil, just farming blue footprints.
Yeah. Could do without that.
Yeah, it's not really the sort of gameplay I want to be engaged in. So I mean, there were certainly rough edges to World as well, but I feel like the rough edges to Rise are worse because of the fact that they all feel avoidable to me. Like, oh well, you've seen how to do this before. It was really successful in World, and you've backed off from it. What's the reason? And in some cases, it's like, well, you can make a cogent argument that this is due to technical limitations, due to the hardware, but that's not really applicable
I'm
to
wondering if
everything.
it's like they know that they had bottled lightning with World, so they took a step back to try and figure out exactly why it worked so well.
Yeah, but I'm concerned that they don't really learn. That like it's not a conducive environment conducive to learning. Immediately after your smash hit, everybody's going to buy the next one you do,
Yes.
no matter what. And they've shipped what 7 million copies of Rise already.
Officially, yes.
I got the numbers in the show host board
Yeah,
somewhere.
it is. It's over the 7 million now.
Yeah, so I mean, how exactly do you learn what specific things are good and what specific things are bad when everybody's just screaming at you to take my money?
Yeah.
You've got to have a sort of finesse in handling community feedback that I've never seen any company have.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know.
So whatever the next
I-
Monster Hunter World game ends up being is probably going to be the big teller as to whether or not they've actually learned anything. I can always guarantee though that Gen 6 will be fully open world.
Yeah, Capcom have been promising in their performance of late, and I'm torn between wanting this making me want to be optimistic, and this making me think the other shoe's going to drop any minute now.
Yeah.
We're going to get like the Monster Hunter version of MVC Infinite. Like, I hope not. I really do.
Correct.
Yeah. If they're going to do it, they won't do it with Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter's kind of their golden cow at this point. Golden cash cow.
Yeah, but yeah, I feel that there are some aesthetic this aesthetic mismatches as well. Like the thing that sticks out the most to me is Magna Malo. Like I suppose I feel like I've got a little bit more invested in Magna Malo since I have the Switch which has Magna Malo printed all over it. But his design seems ridiculously over-designed for a monster who is, one of the character monsters, but it just seems so clumsily mishandled compared to whatchamacallit, Nergigante?
Yeah.
Because Nergigante becomes a real character, especially through Iceborne.
Yeah,
But
Magna Malo
he's-
is like it's Magna Malo. He's driving the Rampage. Oh wait, no, he's not. Let's just ignore him then.
Yeah, so you've got Nergigante appears quite early on in World, relatively speaking, and he's this constant predator that appears and makes his presence felt in a big way every time he does. And he's still a monster that you kill, but he constantly reappears, and right up to the very end, he's constantly reappearing.
He
Albeit
shows up
oftentimes
right at the
to steal your
climax of
kills.
Iceborne as well. Yeah,
Yeah, because he's a kill stealer.
he's a kill stealing
Kill
jerk.
stealing. Yeah, kill stealing little bitch. But yeah, he still shows up, and he gets more powerful, of course, as you go along. Like you've got your super Nergigante that's metal, and you can't break his spines and that sort of thing later on.
Yeah.
It was just absolutely horrible. Ruiner Nergigante, I think he was called.
Yeah, because he ruins everything.
Yeah, and I was like, I have enough trouble with regular Nergigante. I mean, I got to the point where I could farm Nergigante reliably and beat the crap out of him, and then Ruiner comes along and it's just all bets are off.
He
Everything
just
you think
stops
you know no longer applies. But yeah, compared to him as poster boy for World, Magna Malo is really a damn squib.
Yeah,
But
like
he pretty much ignored after the first time you fight him.
they know how to do it. Like you've got Nergigante. Previous to that, you had Gormagala, who did the same thing as Nergigante, and for generations, you had the Fated Four.
But the thing is, I feel like Magna Malo just doesn't have the right aesthetic balance. I feel like he's very, very over-designed.
Yeah,
And like, if you compare him with Nergigante, you've got some very core design beats there. Like he's a four-legged guy who's got wings. He's a standard sort of beefy dragon build. He's got spines all over him and massive horns and a very angry look on his face. And he moves in a very sort of if it's sort of like a very buff version of Nagakuga.
yeah.
It's got that sort of predator cat type movement to him in a lot of ways, but also the sort of like reckless abandon type movement that Bagel Goose is the poster child for. But Magna Malo is just a ridiculously over-designed reskin of Zenogre. Like, that's pretty much all there is to it, and Zenogre's more dangerous. So, I feel like they really missed the boat on that one. I think that they should have played him out the way they did Nergigante, made him a little bit more different in the way he fights to Zenogre than they did, and upgrade him in sort of size and scope to be an Elder Dragon, and then have him not bow out so early in the story, but have some kind of like ecological interaction between him and Ibushi and Nawa. I think that would have been a better way to go, rather than just making him, he's this one note monster who's just going to disappear from the plot immediately when he's done. Like this, we're not in the early days of Monster Hunter anymore, where Rathalos was a big deal. That's not the case. So you can't just do that. You can't bring in a non-Elder Dragon and expect them to have Elder Dragon level impact. So, I mean, he's ultimately, as a predator, he's on the same level as Bagel Goose, and Bagel Goose is a clown. So
a really annoying one.
The level of seriousness is not there that it really needs to be there. I suppose he's also, because you fight him as a low rank monster, sort of takes a lot of his gunpowder away, because low rank monsters have a huge amount of tell to their attacks. So when he's going to fire his tail laser at you, he basically puts up a neon sign saying, "I'm a charging my laser."
Well, even all of this, I don't think any of this would be a problem if it wasn't mechanically, if it wasn't for the wire bug. All of Magna Malo stem from that. If you get hit by something, you can just wire bug out of it, and there's no reason to be punished.
That's the case with a lot of monsters, but I feel like Magna Malo almost suffers from it more than anyone else, because his attacks are mostly very linear. Like he's not as much, he's not as spinny as Zenogre does. Is like Zenogre has a lot more laterality to his attacks, despite being on the same skeleton, whereas there's a lot of narrow avenue high damage coming out of Magna Malo. Like he does sort of like vertical flips and then slaps his tail down in a line more often than Zenogre does. In fact, it's his more common flip attack than compared with the ones that Zenogre uses. Plus his tail laser is completely linear. Plus the wire bug gives you the opportunity to pretty much no-sell his Hellfire.
Yeah.
As soon as you get Hellfire, wire bug out of there and roll a couple times and you're fine.
Yeah.
Hellfire is just never an issue. Once you realize that it's there, it's no longer a threat.
And when most of his attacks come out right in front of him, if you do get clipped by something and he turns to face you, if you get clipped by something that knocks you back and you have a wire bug charge, what are you going to do? Before you even hit the ground, you're going to use the wire bug.
Yeah. Although occasionally I don't use the wire bug on purpose, because I know that I'm going to need it in a second. So
there's that. But he also has a big exploitable weakness, is that you can turn his Hellfire against him. Like if he's got his Hellfire on his arms, you just whack them enough times, it explodes on him. If he's got it in his mouth, you back him on the snoot and it explodes in his mouth.
If you're a great sword user, you never bank on tactics like that, because you never know when you're going to be able to get a hit in.
Yeah, greatsword doesn't really.
So I don't.
But for everyone else,
I don't use that, but yeah, I feel that's another aspect of him being over-designed. Like how many basic mechanics have that level of interactability? And on the surface, it looks like a good thing, which is why I can see why they put it in. But the reality is, because he's a regular monster, none of that really pays off in the end. None of this stuff would be a problem. None of these criticisms would be a problem for a regular monster who is a regular monster, but he's unfortunately a regular monster who is supposed to be the poster child for this game.
Which is why I think we're going to see something we've never seen before with a headliner, and that's once the game is out of the regular circulation, he's the first headliner that no one's going to be really requesting back.
I imagine he'll weasel his way back in as DLC in the next game.
Almost certainly. He'll turn up at some point. I know he's guaranteed pretty much to turn up in stories too.
Because big problem with what's his nuts with Magna Malo is when you're fighting him specifically, he's built up. He has an okay design that looks intimidating. he has that same kind of Nargacuga feel. When you're fighting him, the wire bug just invalidates everything because nothing he can do can punish you. If you make a mistake, you're just going to correct it with the wire bug.
Well, he does have a few attacks that no-sell the wire bug, but not enough.
Not
think.
enough.
I think that Hellfire, to make him really scary, Hellfire should have disabled the wire bug.
Yeah, if he'd done that, then suddenly he would have gone from kind of a B tier monster to a major threat.
Because you need to stay at full health fighting Super Rank Nargacuga, because if you got hit by something, you are going to get popped by something else in his combo chain, and you're probably going to be left with a sliver of health. And you need to plan around, running around, taking that hit, recovering that health, and finding a way to re-engage the monster more safely. With Magnamalo, you get popped by something, you wire bug, your weapon's already sheathed, you quickly pop a baby potion, and you're back in the fight.
Yeah, I think that there are a few ways that they could save him, but I think that the one that I want to see, and I think it's probably because I'm new to Monster Hunter and I never got to see the likes of the zombie plague taking place, that I think that Magnamalo should be the larval form of an Elder Dragon. It should be something much scarier that that Magnamalo eventually becomes.
That would be
because
actually
as
a
it
really
is,
cool thing.
Because as it is, it doesn't really make much sense. So you can come up with some post facto ecological justification, like, because you've got these three forces that are intrinsic to the rampage, right? Nawa, Ibushi, and Magnamalo. They've all been stated to be instrumental in some way to the rampage. So you could easily come up with some sort of flimsy justification that, oh well, Magnamalo is sort of suppressed by the presence of Nawa and Ibushi, but since you've devoted all your effort to driving them off, suddenly there's only one apex predator left in the rampage, and he gets to feast as much as he wants and become as powerful as he wants, and then, oh dear, he's grown up a bit and now he's an Elder Dragon, he's actually threatening.
That would be cool. I'd like to see him do something like that.
While we're talking about Monster Hunter, I wanted to float an idea about something I think I've really hit on what my problem with the game is. If there's one specific aspect of the mechanic that is the wire bug that's been driving me nuts, and Magnamalo really highlights this, and it's the fact that your weapon is sheathed when you use the wire bug. As soon as you
that's a magic solution to so many things. Like, I kept wondering why I wasn't getting popped when disengaging all the time as a greatsword user, because as a greatsword user, the number one timing that you are most sensitive for, other than your weapon charge, is your weapon sheath time, because you can't run if you've got your weapon out as a greatsworder. And the ability to just wire bug your weapon away and suddenly be out of danger, it's way too powerful. Like, it's the unpredictability that it introduces in your timing can be a bit of an issue at times, but generally speaking, the greatsword sort of, I won't say that it loses its major weakness, since its weaknesses are twofold. Number one is charging time, and number two is sheathing time. But it doesn't quite feel right to be so able to immediately disengage, because the risk was always your disengage is difficult with the greatsword. That's what made it really, really risky to use, and the payoff was really, really high because of that. And I feel like they've just sort of neutralized that a little bit with the wire bug, which only reason it hasn't really made the greatsword overpowered is that the greatswords are all really lackluster. Although now that they've actually added the top tier to greatswords, that might change. I don't know. I haven't tried any of them out yet, since I can't even get any of the materials required to make the top tier. But yeah.
Need to fight Teo.
In the recent patch, Greatsword finally got its final versions of most of the weapons, where they weren't there. They simply weren't there before.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just top tiers, even the upper tiers, like for instance, Mizutsune sort of stopped at rank 4 or 5. It didn't have a rank 6 form until this patch.
Yeah.
Yeah, Switch Axe has a lot of that as well. It's not as bad as Greatsword, but yeah, there's still enough of it.
But yeah, I'm still having fun playing it. It's just that I suppose the better you know something, the more its flaws will start to stand out. But yeah, I'm still having good fun playing it. I just wish that you guys were ever on when I am. But
no,
yeah,
Saturdays.
If
you want to come fight the Icky Mudfish Mark II.
I mean, I can fight the icky mudfish if it will make you stop fighting the icky mudfish and fight something else soon. Because I don't really like fighting elder dragons by myself until I'm really well geared, because there's just too high of a chance you're going to waste a lot of time.
Yeah, there's also the chance that they just up and delete you.
That's what I mean, basically.
Yeah.
But they'll up and delete you, but it doesn't necessarily happen at the start of the fight. It could be after you've been engaged for 25 minutes, and then they decide to pull something out their backside, which just whomps you, and it's
No, I
there's
did have
25
that
minutes
happen
down
in
the line.
World once. Like 5
Yeah,
minutes
it
into the
does
fight,
happen.
just deleted.
It does happen. It does happen.
Yeah.
Especially with really aggressive ones like Nugagante, they can sometimes just remove you from the
Can't remember
field of
which one
battle.
did it.
But yeah, so I'm having fun playing that. I'm still having fun just fighting random monsters because they are so diverse compared to World. Like the
Yeah.
amount of time that I've been playing World, like compared to the amount of time that I have had Monster Hunter Rise, the amount of monsters that were available to fight were much smaller. Like you just end up fighting the same ones over and over again.
It's understandable. Like when they started producing World, they were essentially starting from scratch with a lot of their monster designs and monster models. They
Yeah,
couldn't reuse the stuff they've been using since Monster Hunter 1.
And to their credit, I feel like they had just barely enough that made it work. If they had had fewer, it would have been a catastrophe. But I think they had managed to get over the minimum threshold that was necessary to make it just work.
Yeah.
And now that they've got a lot more skeletons and textures under their belt, they can diverge a great deal more from that. But yeah, in Rise though, we've got like and sort of enough monsters kicking about that I will often actually use the expedition option and just go in and hunt random things that pop up, because there is enough diversity for me not to get bored. If I did that in Ancient Forest after having had World the same amount of time that I've had Rise, it would be Pookie Pookie Toby Kadachi, Pookie Pookie Toby Kadachi, Great Jagras. Like, yeah, it's not going to be quite so engaging.
Great Jagras is really just a big hell sponge on the way to killing whatever you're killing that you can stop and get
beat
a bit
him up on the way through. Yeah.
Yeah, we did that a lot of the time when we were hunting other things, and Great Jagras would show up and it'd be like, hey, let's just kill this Joker first, and then we'll go back to doing what we were doing.
Yeah, to put it in context, World relied a lot on the tempered and a lot of subspecies. There is one subspecies now as of the new patch in Rise, and it's a subspecies of a monster that wasn't in the game before anyway.
Yeah, well, they also have apexes.
Yeah, and apexes, who are just big angry versions.
I haven't really fought apexes outside of the tutorial yet.
We fought Angry Azarus earlier today. That was interesting. I hate this.
Is he anything other than an extremely large health sponge?
Not really. He's basically just a larger Azarus that hits hard and takes more health. I didn't notice any particular changes from his moves except for a higher level of aggression.
Yeah, I don't really understand the purpose of Apex monsters. Like, I thought that they've just changed the name of Tempered Monster, but they don't seem to be playing it out like that.
Like, they've done that sort of system better in the past, but better even than Tempered, where there is closer to a subspecies. Where you'd have these alternate versions of monsters. They might have a new skin on them, not necessarily, but they'd always have at least one new move they crack out.
Yeah, wasn't there like a particularly angry Diablos or something that?
Yeah, that was in Generations. That was, what was it called now?
And he straight up had new powers and stuff, didn't he?
Oh yeah, it was Diablos, unbelievably pissed off. But
Black Diablo?
With a bunch more powers.
So like he could like turn his blood into steam and stuff.
Yeah, it was nuts.
I could stand to see a bit more of that.
Was it Blood Rage Diablos or something like that? Let me see.
I'm not sure.
I'll look it up.
But it was like monsters that had survived for a ridiculous amount of time and had acquired powers through whatever. And they all fought differently to their original counterparts because they had abilities that the previous ones didn't.
Let me see if I can actually It was Bloodbath Diablos.
Yeah, so it's essentially a Diablos, and he has all Diablos' abilities, but he's got a few extra ones garnishing it that make him a different experience to fight because he can pull
Deviants, that's
something
what
out of
they
the
were called.
backside. Yeah, I think that they should use that model more often.
Yeah. Like, just put a couple more mechanics in there. Don't just change some numbers.
But
Anyway.
yeah, as far as video goes, that's been more or less my play for the week. I wish these guys did keep abandoning me for other games, but I mean, what can you do?
Crappy timing is crappy timing.
Yeah,
You're going on to day shift though, aren't you?
Coming out of day shift now. So I
you're coming
actually
out of day
dodged the
shift.
worst of the drunk cowboys this weekend. So that was nice.
yeah. I've been around during after work normal hours. Like I'll pop on around 9 o'clock my time, but for you that's like you're asleep or at work or going to work. So I'll get on around 7 or 8 o'clock now. But work has finally calmed down though, so I do have time to actually sit down and do some stuff after work now.
Don't worry, I'm sure tax season will come along before long.
It's nearly the end of financial year.
Don't worry, I'm still wrestling with the CPA. That's an ongoing battle that never ends.
Anyway, I guess I'll leave it there. I don't think I've encountered anything much else that I really want to talk about.
Alright, and with that we should take a break. 'Cause
Yeah,
we
we
are
need to-
way over time.
Yep. We'll figure out what we're actually going to do because we started this. Fern told me that Vol wasn't coming, so we set up a filler show, so we have to reorganize.
I said I was on the can. I didn't say I wasn't coming.
I thought you were tapping out sick.
I wasn't tapping out sick.
Oh well.
Various parts of my anatomy were in rebellion against various other parts of my anatomy, but the war was going to come to a close sooner or later.
Fair enough. So yeah.
So
Break.
we'll have to we'll get some reorganization done, and we'll be right back. And we're back. And the weak section ran over time because we were setting up wrong. Because Ferd gave me bad information.
So, just for a change of pace, by the way, on the stream, I've changed over to Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. You now get to see me click through 100 different screens before I even get to play the game.
Yeah, that was the other problem with Duel Links. It is a good format, I think, for casual play, especially. But holy crap, it's a mobile game port.
Oh yeah, like you can see the big dead. Oh, what's that? Last Night 5.
But yeah, and it doesn't have the same kind of PC support that Shadowverse does. It's really janky. It's got a bit of extra quality of life stuff because you have a bigger screen, but for the most part, it's just a mess with its UI and stuff.
Yeah,
like it's still there are buttons you can click, but sometimes it's still faster to somehow swipe to do stuff, and doing that on a computer monitor just ain't good. So I think we actually. So I don't think we came to a conclusion on this. I told Sarah this at the top of the show. We weren't going to read a Xenon this week. Do we want to save it for next week?
You predicated that on bad information.
Yeah, I did tell him that on bad information. I can just tell him in the if you want to go ahead and read it.
Let me see if there's anything. I don't think there's anything.
I don't know whether you guys managed
there,
to.
so.
I don't know whether you guys managed to dig up any news while I was busy suffering. So
there's a little bit in there, but it's mostly it got to end of the week and I started posting sales figures. So you know,
yeah. Anytime you've just got to resort to raw numbers, it usually means that interesting news is a bit thin on the ground.
There's a few little.
Talk about a bunch of Sonic or Dragon Quest stuff.
I've never really been a huge fan of either, so I can't say much about them.
I've never gotten into Dragon Quest.
Nor have I. It's just the whole Toriyama thing to me, because every character has one of three faces. So
yeah, that's Toriyama really. But it's also like Dragon Quest is incredibly generic, but the problem with it is it's generic because it kind of wrote a lot of those JRPG tropes in the first place.
Yeah, like being Dragon Quest. Calling Dragon Quest generic, it would be easier to invert that and say things are generic because of Dragon Quest.
But realistically, I classify that as not my problem. Like, if I decide I don't want to play it because it looks bland, that's their problem when they're trying to sell me a product. It's not my problem.
But they tell good enough stories. They follow a stock standard JRPG.
Classic.
Does it involve crystals in any way?
All over the place. Everywhere crystals.
The last one involved time travel.
And crystals. It did involve crystals.
I thought it was a tree.
It also involved a tree.
Yeah. So I don't remember.
6 crystals to a tree, and there was something about time travel, or I don't know.
The last Dragon Quest game I would classify as not a waste of your time, but not particularly memorable.
It's on the Game Pass.
It's on the everything.
It's on the everything. But in most places, it still costs top dollar because Squeenix.
Yeah, like, if I'm going to play a fairly generic JRPG, I have a pile of Neptunia games a mile high to play. I don't need to pay for top dollar ones if I can get the same experience for $15.
Yeah. At least Neptunia is... We're generic. Let's crap all over it.
Well, if you want your JRPG without the funnies, and you just want some like you're going to McDonald's and you order your double quarter pounder plain like I do because you're boring, then
why would you do that?
Then that's
no cheese.
I've never ordered anything from McDonald's with a qualifier before.
Plain is just cheese and meat.
So no sauce,
no sauce,
no pickles, no nothing.
Yep.
Your onion.
Put anything I want on it when I get home.
Aristotle, that's a sandwich.
That is a meat sandwich.
I'm sorry, my onions taste better. My ketchup tastes better.
If you're worried about the taste, you shouldn't have been in McDonald's to begin with.
Sometimes when you're getting back from the post office, McDonald's is the only thing that's on the way.
Go to Taco Bell. You've never regretted that.
Actually, I reheated some quesadillas last night or the night before, and they weren't that bad.
Oh, how are you not dead?
Well, I'm surprised that it was me stuck on the can for the show. Then
Exactly.
No, that was this morning. It came back to bite me later. It just took a while.
It's kind of a delayed response.
So yeah. We got some news we can go through. Sarathis, we'll just get to your email next week because I told you at the top of the show we would do it then. So I don't want you to get confused in case you bail out early.
which is not to say you can't send us another email.
You can. We'll read it. So I posted a bunch of sales figure stuff. Capcom's doing really well. I'll roll them both together.
Big surprise.
Yeah,
They released two smash hit games within a short distance of each other.
yeah. This isn't what I would call news to anyone, but just confirmation that yes, the water is still wet.
Yeah,
So,
Capcom done's good and has reaping rewards for being good.
Aristotle, you said you'd been watching the Lotus Eaters podcast. I don't think you want to accuse water of being wet. It's too risky.
I haven't been watching when Carl's not on.
Well, Carl's the one who causes this to be a problem. You see,
Oh, I see.
because he turns it into a philosophical discussion about whether or not water actually is wet. Just the last thing anybody really wants.
I have no idea how an argument like that would even be made.
It's oh yeah, he does, doesn't he? Yeah, Sargon still has his navel gazing parts. Drives me a little insane when he does that, but then that's the boy for you.
I don't think there's anything wrong with navel gazing. It's just that he does it from such like flimsy philosophical education that he thinks he's been profound. It's like no, that's not how qualia work. No, that's not how accidents work. No, none of that is coherent. I thought you claimed you read Plato. I thought you claimed you read Aristotle. No, none of that's true either. My goodness. I haven't read any of those writers in depth, and I know that he's missing the mark. My goodness.
Yeah, the only philosopher I in general hate philosophers because I think they just stunt people from thinking. But I have read Aristotle's work on plays. None of his stuff about actual metaphysical philosophy and the way stuff works, though.
No, I think that if you don't understand philosophy from either a Plato or an Aristotle point of view, at least a little bit, you basically don't understand thinking in the West, period, and you aren't thinking at all, you're just reciting. I think the opposite to Aristotle. I think if you don't know anything about philosophers, then you're the one who's just regurgitating information and not thinking. Because how else can you process information other than thinking about it? If you aren't thinking correctly, then you're just regurgitating.
This debate could go on for a while. We were talking about sales figures. So, and I'm not prepared for it either. So,
It serves you right for saying water was wet.
Yeah, you shouldn't have done that.
That'll teach you.
yeah. So, we can do that one when I'm more prepped for it. Anyway, what you call it? Monster Hunter Rise, we talked about how that's piggybacking mostly off of World. Village selling 4 million. That's actually a little, compared to their other successes, that's huge, but not as huge as I was expecting, as much media coverage as it's getting, and since it's one of the only AAA games getting coverage right now.
It's survival horror, though. There's always a niche market. Because survival horror has been brutally hit by the streamer fad.
I suppose so.
Because it's always more fun to play, to watch horror is always more fun with other people because you get to see their reactions. That's what the genre is essentially about. The people that want to play it just for its own sake are a very niche audience. And while there are still plenty of those people around, they're not the broad audience. Like Monster Hunter is as a franchise is a game par excellence. It's purely about the gameplay. It's got lots of pretty colors, lots of nice music, lots of colorful things to do, but it's very gamey. It's all about the game. Whereas survival horror is a genre that's about the experience, and certain experiences are simply facilitated by the accompaniment of other people. And streaming is a sort of a virtual form of that. And if you look at the sorts of titles that get picked all the time by streamers, if you factor out ones that are sort of like mass appeal games like Fortnite and like Apex and that particular grade of game, what's left, one of the largest chunks of that audience is survival horror games and horror games in general.
Well,
I think it's just due to the fact that people like to experience that type of thing with other people predominantly.
I guess it's if we want to take that route with it, there's another thing working against it, and that these games are usually, relatively speaking, pretty short. A streamer will actually be able to finish them reasonably within their streaming times if they play 1 or 2 sessions.
Yeah, it's definitely an advantage from their point of view because most stream viewers don't want the thing to drag on for 60 hours because they'll get bored of it.
Yeah, like Resi 8 is, unless you got short brain going on, it's a 10-hour game if you're really exploring.
How long was 7? Just out of curiosity.
About 9.
Yeah, so if you were going to just do a 7, 8, Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 8 sort of stream series, like back to back to back to back to back, that's a well self-contained experience that is not going to be long enough to bore your audience, but will be a satisfying sort of experience to watch throughout the course of a self-contained story. Like it's just a good prospect for streamers, but anything that is a good prospect for streamer would eat into a certain amount of your sales, but not a huge amount of your sales. Like it doesn't actually invalidate the play experience because of the advertising power of streaming. So I think that a certain amount of the very high but lower than potential sales that we saw coming out of Resident Evil Village will be because you have got a very, very stream-friendly game, which a lot of people will watch rather than play, but that's coupled to the advertising power of that medium itself, which is why people aren't actually butthurt about it in the industry.
So yeah. But still, it's good to see that it's doing well. The way they're taking the Resi games is definitely the right direction. And Resi 8 coming out as a complete game alleviated some worries I had about Rise. Because I wondered that Capcom was slipping. But since Resi 8 came out, a fairly finished product, they did mention a lot of stuff was cut. But that happens with every game. And the game we got was still finished.
Generally speaking, if you look at cinematic experiences, cutting usually makes things better.
Yeah.
Like people burble at length about how great the Snyder cut was of Justice League, but the main thing that it may or may not be better, considering how bad Justice League was, it's probably better. But the main thing that most people are actually aware of about the Snyder cut post-release is that it's long. It's really long, like really, really long. Cutting is an art, and when you don't do it, you get things like the latter Harry Potter books.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was less of a dig against it. Anyway, it was just they said they had stuff they wanted to see in the final product, but they just didn't have time to flesh it out.
What I'm saying is, I think that this is to their advantage. Like, to know what is important to keep and what ideas can be kept for another time speaks well of their directorial prowess.
Yeah, and they managed to give us a complete and finished experience, regardless, which is higher bar cleared than most of the rest of the industry.
Yeah, and they haven't been nickeling and diming people lately either. I mean, if you look at Monster Hunter Rise, they have continued the Monster Hunter World policy of, yes, sure, we'll charge you to redo your character or whatever if you're so inclined. However, we're going to continue to heap free content on you day after day after day.
Yeah, even Resi 7 just piled on free DLC, like free full extra chapters and missions you could do from different characters' perspectives and stuff. There was one you had to pay for, but there were like 1 or 2 others that were completely free.
Yeah, I mean, the likes of EA are using FIFA to print money, so it's too much to hope that they will take notice, but I really do like that Capcom is being rewarded in sales for their generosity with content, because the amount of sales records that they get for various things has been really quite impressive of late. Like, most games don't make more than, say, 1 article on the number of sales it got in its first week after they come out. But Monster Hunter World and Monster Hunter Rise, it was like twice a week there'd be an article incrementing the millions counter by 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad to see that generosity is paid off. Like that, not only do they release a game that is totally fully functional on launch without any game-breaking bugs, but in addition to that, every month they'll have another announcement of a big patch. So, I mean, this month we got the jet-powered dragon, whatchamacallem, I can't remember.
Valstrax. A subspecies of
Valstrax.
Valstrax.
Yeah, so Velstrax, who is quite a popular creature in amongst the fandom, from what I can tell. People seem very excited to see him. Although he doesn't really seem to me like he fits in with any of the environments in Rise.
Yeah, but
But,
that seems to be a running theme in Rise.
But yeah, and of course they'll give out a few challenge quests and expansions, extra weapons were added, that sort of thing. Like I don't expect it to carry on indefinitely, and they're not necessarily going to be the sort of massive scale that some of the things that came out for World were, like the Molten Gold Dragon, what's her name? But
Yeah.
but yeah, it's still, they are doing these things to support the existing community and keep them enthusiastic, which is, I think, the ideal way for basically customers and publishers to cooperate to make the next game a success.
Even then, even when they do ask for money for their stuff, they could have locked all of like the virtual content behind needing to buy the special edition of Devil May Cry 5, but they didn't. They said, "Give us $5, and we'll unlock everything that you can possibly run in the special edition, which will be everything except for the Horde mode on PS4, and that'll be it."
Yeah, so, I think that Capcom is really standing as an example for what I would like some of the other companies to aspire to. But like I said, they're still printing money. There are people who, as far as EA are concerned, they have been eaten alive by the gambling engine that is FIFA. Like, I did not expect in my lifetime to see something more predatory in games than the FGO gacha, but in fact, this has been blown out of the water by EA Sports games. But and if you look at Activision, you've got that obscenely complicated seeming market ecosystem that's grown up around Call of Duty that I just don't even comprehend. Like, they've got multiple sort of interlocking properties and platforms within the Call of Duty ecosystem, where they've got like multiple games in the wild at once. They've got their battle royale, which interlocks with their mainline releases, which interlocks with their mobile game, and they all affect each other's balance in various convoluted ways, which thus far seems to give them more than anything else the opportunity to upset more than one player base at a time, rather than to make happy more than one player base at a time. But they are still making bank off of it because it's all tied into that market.
Yeah. It's not a market I'm in or follow closely. I can't tell you how those people think. So I don't know with that one.
But the fact is that they are printing money, and my reason for saying this is that means that they won't be taking Capcom's cues anytime soon, because to them, Capcom's just some small player in the industry. To us, Capcom is a company that at present is keeping us happy. But EA and Activision don't care about happy players. They care about players that are willing to part with their dosh.
Yeah, this is why we give Capcom so much spotlight recently. Basically, ever since Resi 7 came out. Resi 7 and Devil May Cry 5 turned Capcom from a verb we would use to describe doing things wrong to something that needs pointing out whenever it does something good to get it more exposure.
20 years ago, this isn't something praiseworthy. This is the minimum bar.
Yeah.
Well, it's like I said last show. I don't want to praise Resident Evil 8 on the merits that I do, because it feels so low. Because I shouldn't be saying, okay, the game's finished. The game doesn't have any major bugs. This is worth your purchase at full price because of these reasons.
But I mean, this is what we have to do. This is the cause to which we have to dedicate ourselves as customers, is to give rewards to the habits we want to encourage, even if we wish that they weren't necessary.
Yeah, there is plenty of stuff to nitpick out of Resi 8. I can talk about the ammo system and how I think it's not great. I can talk about how silly some of the story beats are, but they just don't matter because the game's done and it's not buggy.
I would be happy to never, ever, 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 ever witness the inside of Heisenberg's factory ever again, which is why I'm not going to purchase that game, because that drags, man. Boy, does it ever drag.
Yeah, compared to the rest of the game. Compared to most other games, it's a fairly short level probably, but in Resi, for a Resi level, it's forever.
As a percentage of the game, It's massive, and it has the spongiest enemies.
Yeah, you're spending a good 20% of your runtime in that factory at least.
Yeah, I watched Gura play through the entire thing, and by the end of it, she wasn't too far out of expectations. Like, I think she spent about 12 hours playing or so, which
Okay.
isn't too bad in the end, but a massively disproportionate amount of that was spent wandering around the factory, even after she just stopped killing anything and ran past everything.
They really need to patch the map of that factory to speed it up, because there are walls that get broken down that still show as walls on the map.
Oh, I see.
So that's where I got lost a few times and had to figure out, I can just go this way.
But yeah, I was one of those people who, because I watched the stream, there's no way I'm going to play that game. But it wasn't because of, I think the game is bad because I watched the stream. It's like, that particular experience is not something that I want. And there are some pretty standout parts in that game. Like, I think that the mansion, the Dimitrescu mansion, was executed just classic Resident Evil for the most part, and the dollhouse part was executed quite well. That whole zero weapons sort of experience, I think, was a nice break from the action. It helped the pacing quite a bit. But that whole Heisenberg factory thing was like, please no, you didn't need to do this. Just don't.
Yeah, if certain parts of the game are homages to different Resi games, that one's where we got up to Resi 5, and it shows. So,
yeah. So, I mean, it's not like the game was flawless or anything, but it did do all its things. It hit all of the minimum targets. It did them solidly, and you can play that game, come away with a decent experience, and you felt like you played a Resident Evil game. It came to a fairly satisfying conclusion. It closed off that particular story branch, left a nice wide opening for a whole bunch more sequels in the future, and yeah, it fits quite nicely in that lineage.
they're going to find a way to bring Ethan back.
I have no doubt that they will, but he'll probably be like, a spirit or like a memory that exists within the giant fungus living under the earth or whatever it is.
They'll just manifest a clone of him to walk around.
Yeah, he won't be a playable. I don't think he'll be a side character or a temporary playable in some really weird scenario.
He'll be one of the free DLCs.
But I think that the part of the reason that I don't think they'll lean too heavily on bringing him back, I think, is because
They don't need to.
no, it's not a matter of whether they need to or not. It's that you will be dramatically defusing the sort of emotional, dramatic heft that you can get out of reuniting him with his daughter. Just resurrecting characters does real damage to dramatic effect. That's why you generally shouldn't resurrect characters ever for any reason. If you're writing a drama, is because all of the emotional heft generated by their death is suddenly a waste and will feel like a waste to the characters. So you generally want to avoid that. And in this situation where the emotional weight of the ending of Village is generated by that, you don't want to disarm that later. It will cause way more problems with story than it will solve.
I guess as I'm praising Capcom for being able to write a complete story, I'm still worried they're going to pull off the exact same thing so many other people do and drop the ball.
Yeah, I think they shouldn't do that. Like, I think you can get away with flashbacks, and you can get away with like having him appear sort of like in partial form as a memory part of the mold, because the mold does take in people's memories. That's been made very clear, but the person themselves is no longer there necessarily. I mean, that's sort of the theme really of 8, is that you really can't bring someone back. That's the sort of what lies beneath everything.
Yeah.
And so to actually then bring someone back would really damage that dramatic story beat, and you really don't want to be doing that. I think that would be really poor decision on their part, because what happens then is that if you kill off a character and it turns out to be for no reason, people react like they did to Last of Us 2.
Yeah, there's another thing I wanted to point out while we're talking about Resi stuff. This is clearly a reboot, dudes.
Like the entire TV Tropes community is in an uproar about not whether these two games are a reboot or not. It's a reboot, guys. You can get over it. There may be some continuity that follows between that's carried over, but characters are different. Characters work
Honestly,
for different organizations.
I'm just not concerned. Like I feel like the lore of Resident Evil has historically been so wacky that to even ask the question seems sort of pointless. It's clearly not in the Raccoon City line of stories, so it really doesn't make a difference whether or not it's a reboot. Period.
Well,
Like,
I think
they're already adding sort of retroactive lore to it about, you know, where did the founder of Umbrella get his inspiration for his experiments and that sort of thing. Like, they've grafted all that stuff in there because they bolt on that conspicuous lore room, and Gargaro even called it that, the lore room. We're in the lore room now at the end.
yeah,
You know the one.
the one that Chris finds.
Yeah, it's the lore room because it's about
The
adding
one
lore.
where the big bad has a personal diary entry for every single individual in the family you fought as a boss before.
Yeah, and it's just sort of lying there, open on the table, sort of thing, so that you can take a good look. Yeah, that sort of thing. Like, they're clearly building a universe there, and it's not really that relevant how well it does or doesn't overlap with the previous ones, because realistically, I don't think that there are that many people who are, you know, ardent lore hounds for the Resident Evil universe.
Not after 6, you would think, until it just is something I noticed on the Reddit and the TV Tropes forums, is there are people that are split, and they will get into heated arguments about this stuff.
Well, I mean, your first mistake was visiting Reddit and the TV Tropes forums.
I know, but it's hilarious to me because it doesn't matter. Ethan's story is tangentially related to bioweapons as a whole, but they don't have anything to do with what Chris and Jill were doing, or with Leon and his stuff with the government. None of that is relevant here. But people are so adamant about these characters being tied into this new narrative, and like, what are you people doing?
Stab.
It was just funny to me because it was so ridiculous. So yeah, there's that. Other news, we should probably move on.
All right.
Two more, one newslet and one okay piece of news we can talk about. BlizzCon 2021 physical show up is canceled for realsies. We heard, I think it was a rumor before, but it's confirmed now. I might be wrong on that.
Is this because they are still pretending like the Coof matters or ever mattered, or is this because they've realised that nobody gives a toss about physical conventions anymore?
Probably column B while blaming column A.
They mention the Coof in their thing, but I don't know if they blame it specifically. Let me check.
Realistically, they probably just don't have anything to talk about.
Yeah, that's what I'm
That's
thinking.
more like it.
And it's way cheaper for them. They realize that they can get the exact same amount of product or promotion digitally, and they can sell digital tickets and make more money.
Mm-hmm. Without actually
I think that
needing
there's
to
a-
pay to have a physical event.
I think there's a limited shelf life on that, to be honest.
Yeah.
I can't see that being a strategy that works indefinitely, because eventually people are going to realise they don't give a toss.
Yeah, all you have to do is wait the next day, and you can watch everything on Honest Bob's YouTube alternative.
Or better yet, you get the digest
Yeah,
from one of the many people that, with Blizzard's full cooperation, cover the news on the topic.
or if you really want to see it that day, you can go to the video games board on 4chan, and Honest Bob himself will be there with a direct stream to whatever you want to see.
You can always count on Bob to have your back.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just the way the internet works. So I too don't know how long shelf life it has, but enough normies like don't go to 4chan or don't go to Honest Bob's that they.
I just find the idea of buying a virtual convention ticket so repugnant.
Yeah, because you're still sitting at your home in front of your own computer, but you don't get all the benefits of going to the con.
Well,
Like the
you don't have to deal
plague.
with con. Yeah, you don't get the plague or the confunk.
Yes,
but,
so much confunk.
You also won't have the opportunity to be lectured by people on how to be woke.
That's actually a plus.
So, but yeah,
So the main reason that I've not regretted my inability to go to PAX in recent years is because, well, ultimately I know that the Wokesters have taken over large chunks of the convention.
Mm-hmm.
And that's largely because the guy that has been delegated by Gabe and Tycho to run PAX, generally speaking, is incredibly woke.
Mm.
so yeah, it's I don't know, when I'm buying a con ticket to go to a con, I never buy it to go to the panels. I go there to meet people.
I usually
I-
go there to buy stuff, to be honest, because it's hard to get the sort of stuff they sell at cons
There's a lot
in
of
New
stuff you
Zealand,
can
generally.
only get at cons too.
So yeah, it's something worth that I just can't justify. It's like, okay, I can buy this virtual con ticket and get all these panels and learn everything this day, or I can just go take a nap and all the digests will be up.
I mean, the panels are still fun. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of good content there, but there is something about it that's more fun than watching it on YouTube. But I don't think it's substantially so in a lot of cases. In some cases, it is. Like for instance, there's something fun about attending like a public D&D game which is taking place on stage, but they are taking like suggestions on what will happen next from the audience type of thing. That's fun.
That's
I've
always
attended
fun.
panels like that.
Yeah.
But mostly cons don't really justify themselves as anything other than sort of like specialties markets to me these days. For cosplayers, I'm sure they still have huge amounts of value. But
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
it's kind of the place to show off your cosplays.
all the value I had with cons was showing up and meeting new people and talking to people. And nowadays, I actually don't want to talk to the type of person that would show up at a con. for lack of any better way to describe it,
yeah.
that type of person that shows up to con just worries me.
Yeah, it used to be that you would go to a con to meet your own kind, but that's not really true anymore because we're old.
Yeah. Oh, I don't want to think about it.
Yeah,
Don't want to think
that's
about
a
it.
horrible thought. Let's not go down that path. What's the other news like?
The other news, well, it's not really a newslet. It's a news thing. Well, it's kind of a newslet because it's technically a rumor, but it's one of those rumors that we're fairly certain is confirmed. Switch. We all know how good the Switch was and how much it prints money. Well, what if Valve made a Switch that you could connect to the internet and stream your games through?
I'd play it.
I just wish we could just. I wish we could stop with the whole streaming thing. I want game streaming to die, and I don't think that just because I have issues with the technology or that I'm a Luddite or anything like that. I think more and more I think that game streaming is going to be sort of like the doom for property rights.
Hmm.
Like because you
really starting
we're
to kick
already-
against a lot of that.
we're already starting to hit that hard. It's becoming very dangerous, and game preservation is also being very badly threatened by it. But I think that the whole streaming thing basically puts a nail in the coffin for it. It's like you're no longer an owner. You're just an attendee at a theme park at that point.
Yeah, we got that big scare with PlayStation earlier,
Very recently, yes.
where they acted like they were going to cut off the ability to purchase and update your games. Well, they didn't say update, but people were reporting they no longer had the ability to update before they backpedaled on it.
No, updates don't go through the store.
But yeah. So yeah, but it was still a worry. And not to mention, if they just stop selling stuff on platforms, we're going to run into a problem where a bunch of people are still releasing stuff right now with Kickstarters and junk.
Mm-hmm.
Not a huge deal for most people, but those promises just can't be kept if the store doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I know that things need to maintain their profitability. I don't have any problem with that. but we need to be very mindful of what we're buying into.
Yeah, I don't see a way out of it though.
And it maybe there isn't one, but that doesn't mean that I need to just speed it on its way. And I don't really see a huge amount of benefit to game streaming, to be honest. Like in the case of, say, Microsoft's service that you get with your Game Pass, like I feel like that's close enough to what we want, generally speaking. I don't think
Yeah.
we're going to see, for the most part, I don't think we're going to see skyrocketing system requirements anymore. As long as technology remains in the current paradigm, we're not going to see like what we used to see at its peak during the late 90s, early 2000s, where every game would be practically unplayable on last year's PC type of situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I don't think we're going to see that ever happen again. There's just not really the room for it.
yeah.
But because of that, I think that something like the Game Pass is a better option, which still allows you a measure of legal entitlement for the products that you own.
Yeah. It gives you access
Because
to the library.
they have-
Provided you keep your subscription up, it's all there.
Yeah, like I mean, I think it's easier to defend in court when it needs to be defended in court than the streaming model, where you never actually have anything on your computer. In the case where you're downloading it, you can sort of demonstrate that you had it at one point. There's sort of like a paper trail left behind. But streaming is essentially, you're just borrowing time, like at a theme park. And we saw this with Nvidia's sort of entry to the streaming market earlier, where they were doing nothing more egregious than selling you access to a virtual machine which existed elsewhere, and yet it was completely wrecked by all the legal challenges that it faced from the companies, even though they weren't doing anything that really interfered with any extant rights or anything like that. I mean, it still created too many legal problems for companies to tolerate. And I think that you're just going to end up with a legal minefield if everybody goes full streaming. And I honestly don't think from a practical perspective that it's a future I want to be a part of anyway, because we're just not going to ever reach that long dreamed of scenario where everybody has perfect internet all the time. And I get frustrated enough when the FGO goes on maintenance. I don't need my streaming service to go on maintenance as well.
Yeah, and I just the game downloaded, you can at least still play it. If you're paying for a streaming subservice, what happens when, I don't know, like the Sony hack again happens and PSN's down for several weeks?
Yeah, I don't think that even if the infrastructure did support it, though, and that there weren't those problems, I still think that I would be very wary of it. I don't have a good feeling about it, and that bad feeling has sort of grown over time. It's not really something that I've carefully reasoned out, but my gut says that it's not a path that is ideal to go down for a customer. It puts too much power in the hands of the people supplying the goods, and that's already bad enough with things like Steam and Microsoft Game Pass, and I think streaming is the next step along that road. I don't want to go much further. I mean, I would be happy still buying all my games from a store, to be honest. Like, if that was what everybody was doing and the market was built around it, then I would be fine with it. But since it's not, I've got to buy into a certain extent. But it just, I see legal risks everywhere because there's so much of a trend towards, we don't need to worry about things like ownership anymore. It's just a lease. And they all think this way now. So I just don't want games to stop existing. I mean, I already accepted the reality that, say, FGO, despite the money and time I put into it, it will cease to exist one day. All of that will be gone. And that's just, the reality of the situation. I mean, one always hopes that there will be an FGO 2 that'll come along and that there'll be some heritability between the two, as unlikely as that is. But ultimately, I've accepted that will be gone one day because the story will end, development will stop, will become unpopular, the service will go down. But in the case of the old games that I have, I can still install those and play them. Like, I can dig out my CD of Duke Nukem 3D and install it and play it, and nobody can take that away from me anymore. But
It takes a lot of faffing around to do it, but yes.
But it doesn't actually take that much because I've done it not terribly long ago. You can get it to work. You just need to make sure that you've got all the right emulation switched on. Getting the sound to work is usually the biggest problem. But the situation with most modern games, I was close to the FGO one, where as soon as the company decides the profitability has fallen too low, it ceases to exist entirely as an entity. And I don't really want that to become the norm.
Well, we saw the first scare with this and the first bit of outrage for it before the Sony thing that happened recently. We saw it with Warcraft 3 Reforged.
Yeah, and that's left ripples that in that community I doubt they're going to forget anytime soon. But people have already stopped talking about it, and I think that's a bit scary.
Yeah, and in a way,
they took away something that people owned. They took it away, and they can't have it back.
And that's not just something that people own. Like, people bought those physical discs. They own that game, and they had registered it as that game. And then the company decided, oh, no, you don't own that anymore. You got to go get a fresh install of Warcraft 3 and not install Battle.net if you want to play the OG game now.
Yeah.
Hope you still got your disc laying around.
I've got mine around somewhere.
I'm pretty sure I could just walk into my old high school and steal a flash drive and it'll have my copy of Warcraft 3 on it.
Nice.
My copy of Warcraft 3 has spread around that entire high school.
It got around.
We played Dota.
Why?
Because every PC class had downtime at my high school.
All right.
But I think that covers all the newslets.
Only a couple of other little nuggets. Like there's a bunch of Sonic games announced, a bunch of Hero Quest games announced.
Dragon
The
Quest.
new halfway point of Pokemon's been announced.
Yeah.
Which is Diamond and Pearl.
Was any good?
I was indifferent towards them. That was right when I stopped. It was a little bit after I stopped really following Pokemans.
Those are the ones I actually skipped. So yeah, I couldn't tell you.
I mean,
not that I would go in for them because I'm still an ardent there was one generation of Pokemon person.
Yeah.
I stopped at Johto. Didn't play Gen 3 at all until later, much later. Played Gen 4 after its whatever Platinum, or there was Diamond, Pearl, and what was the combo one? Was it Platinum?
I think it was Platinum.
Yeah, I played that one. And then I didn't play Black and White until much, much later. Black and White 2.
What's actually interesting about this Diamond and Pearl remake is they're selling a double pack with both.
Yeah.
That's a weird decision if you ask me.
That is a weird decision.
I mean, the whole point... I guess the whole point of Pikaman is to... In the old days, it was to encourage interactivity because everybody would have a different version of the game and you could trade. Nowadays, it's to get people to buy both versions so they have everything.
Yeah. Because you can do all that online now.
Fire Emblem.
Yeah, that was really dumb. Fire Emblem did something even stupider.
Yeah, let's just put half the story behind the other game and then put the ending in a third game.
Yeah,
that happened right around the time I was sort of getting curious about it as a franchise and wondering if I wanted to try one, and then I heard about that, and that just put the bullet in Fire Emblem for me.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like, this is a really bad marketing strategy.
It was,
yeah. I don't know who signed off on that, but whoever was on the Fates team and said, we're going to make an easy game, we're going to make a hard game, and then we're going to make you have to buy at least one of those and then buy a digital-only copy of the third game to get the ending, that person needs to be shot. And it was full price.
Yeah.
The ending was full price.
That was the scummiest thing I think Nintendo's done in a while.
and you had to replay through most of the missions, reskinned with slightly different dialogue to get to that ending in the new game. But you had to have one of the original games before you could get it, because it was I think it was a standalone title, but you had to import data from one of the other games or something like that. It was, everything about Fates is awful.
nobody that Fates. Why you do this to me? I don't want to get on a Fates tear again. I hate that video game.
It just sticks out in my mind because it was at that time that I was sort of becoming curious about that franchise, and I was like, oh, well, they've released this new one. Maybe I should try that out. Maybe I should dabble in that. And it's like I find out how it works, and it's like, who is responsible for this? This is ridiculous.
Yeah, just if you want to get into Fire Emblem, I unironically am going to tell you to go play the GBA games.
But like I said, they put a bullet in it for me. Like they had their chance to gain my interest, and they screwed it up.
Yeah.
And that's how it has to be, in my opinion. It's the only way to get the message across.
To be honest, you saved yourself a whole lot of headache because what was in Fates wasn't worth the price tag. Oh boy, that game was bad. Oh, now I'm in memory land. Can we move on, please?
Probably time to start wrapping.
Going to memory land is an indicator that you're old, by the way.
Yeah, but it's not happy memory land. There's no stories here, just pain.
Just sadness.
Oh, it's like Mahjong in Yakuza all over again.
Oh no. Well, now you're playing Hobomon, so.
Oh, there's Mahjong here too. I didn't talk about. I'll explain the Yakuza shenanigans I've been going through next week.
Yeah.
Because honestly, I need more time with it. So yeah. Well, that's what we got for this show, I guess. There is no email topic of the week because I didn't prepare one because it was a filler show.
Implying you've prepare one.
So, or it was supposed to be a filler show, and then it wasn't.
And it suddenly wasn't. So yeah.
So, Fern, why you do this to me? Totally threw me off my rocker.
Implying you were ever on it to begin with.
That's true. So, I'll close the show up.
Alright. The usual shtick. Closing comments, do the thing.
Despite all that I said earlier, Magnum Malo is still an angry boy.
He is still an angry boy. But he deserves to be criticized.
Man, I don't have anything this week to close it out on. So, all right, I think
Online card games are dangerous. Do not play them.
Yeah, they'll make you suck your money.
Yes.
They'll make me.
That's the show. Thanks, guys. Goodbye.
All right, sayonara, bye bye.